Trey,
Jacob.
what are you burning?
Frankincense.
Frankincense.
Yeah, just like the Jews used to do.
Thousands of years ago.
Yeah, you know what they also burned?
What?
That ganja.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, hey, look at the results. They found remains. They found remains of ganja in the
Really?
temple. Yes, look that up. I sent that to Hezi.
Marijuana Temple Mount. 2020. Archaeologists identify traces of burnt cannabis in ancient Jewish shrine. New research suggests the mind-altering substance may have been widely used in the ritual practices of the Kingdom of Judah. Burnt cannabis and frankincense. Found two altars. Where are these altars? Roughly 35 miles south of Jerusalem, in an archaeological site in the Negev desert known as Tel Arad. Archaeologists found shrines. Yeah, this is Canaanite. It's not the Temple Mount.
Well, not the Temple Mount, but in the surrounding area, right?
It's 35 miles south of Jerusalem. That's a 10-hour walk.
But it was said it was in Jewish temples, right?
I mean, this doesn't say what year it was dated to. Dated 760 to 700 BC, so it's before the first exile.
Why not just say some rogue Israelites?
Could be rogue Israelites. I have no idea who it was.
Yeah.
But it's not the Temple Mount. It would be very different if they had found it on the Temple Mount. Isn't that right, Shadow?
That is right. So what's new? I've been kind of tweaking this Marcionite stuff. I think I got some good stuff to work with Paul. I'm telling you.
God. How you doing, Justin?
Good. How you doing, Jacob? What's up, Trey?
Howdy.
Have you stopped being a flaming liberal yet?
Me or Trey?
No, not you. Why would I think you?
Have you met my cat? This is my cat, Shadow.
Oh, that's an adorable cat. I used to have a cat named Shadow.
I got a black cat just so I could name her Shadow of Death.
That's great.
I saw you had an interview with Father something earlier today.
Young penitent, maybe?
I don't know.
It wasn't a priest.
I thought it was with a priest.
No, I was interviewed.
Oh, somebody was interviewing you.
Someone's interviewing me. Because I'm a rock star, and
I saw in the thing it said Father John Bear.
Oh yeah, no, that's just our book club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're reading through the mystery of Christ, life and death.
That's a big name, Father John Bear.
Right? Yeah, he's a big name, big guy. Yeah, I read his The Way to Nicaea and the Nicene Faith volumes 1 and 2, and that gave me a good history of Christian.
Does he agree with me that Nicaea is when Christians turned their back on God?
No, absolutely not.
No, it was before then. So, yeah, I mean.
Man. He might agree with that as long as your rabbi agreed that you turned your back on the Messiah when you crucified him. So
I didn't crucify anybody.
I
didn't crucify anybody.
I did.
So Trey is on a Marcionite kick. He's become a huge fan of Marcion.
he can't be a fan of Marcion.
Why can't I be a fan of Marcion?
Well, because that would make you not a Christian, number one. And then number two, you'd have to believe that the God of the Old Testament is evil. Number three, you'd have to believe that physicality is the material world in and of itself is evil. I mean, there's a lot of things you'd have to believe is,
I mean,
He has no
One
problems with any of these, apparently.
That's
Yeah.
bad. Excuse me. Eldon, come in. And quietly, sir. What are you doing? It's 11 o'clock. What are you doing awake?
He's bringing up my present. He's bringing up a present.
Is that a present you bought me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, handsome man. I will be sure to not open it before Christmas.
You peeking.
Okay, beloved. Now it's time for you to go to bed. Okay, I will not peek. I promise. Come here. Let me give you a kiss. Remember Jacob?
Yeah.
Well, then,
He can't hear you. He said hello.
Hello.
All right. All right. I'm gonna God bless you, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Amen. Love you.
Goodbye.
Be safe.
Okay.
Go to bed. All right. I'm sorry.
That's cute.
Oh yeah, I've got a cute kid, man. I got a good kid.
Yeah.
No, it was great, dude. I was talking. We watched the Martin Luther movie because my kids were asking questions about Lutheranism because they've been reading my Discord server.
your kids have been reading your Discord server. That's
Yes.
reading for a little kid.
Yeah, well, that's what they do, right? So
Yeah.
they poke around in Dad's business, and Dad deals with Charlie. So
what have you? I have not been able to keep up. I honestly tonight I was like, do I want to do a just chatting stream? So Paul Vanderklay took a clip. I don't know how I become the center of discussion online when I haven't been online. This is the most offline I've been in years.
right,
This past week, I've barely been able to stay online,
right,
to catch up with stuff.
right. Yeah, we've been really busy too. By the way, is Hanukkah over yet? Has it happened yet? What's going on with Hanukkah?
Ended last week. Today is the last of the 10th of the 10th.
Oh,
Oh, speaking of Hanukkah, I have a present, but I'd like to preview the present if you would like it.
You don't have to buy me a present. You already got me a present.
No, I didn't buy it, but since you like weird religious stuff, I found something you may like.
I may like.
Here, let me send you a video real quick here, and if you're willing to share it, it's a video I just made. It's like 3 minutes long.
Okay.
But look at this, dude. All right, you go ahead. You show yours first. The 3 eternal destinies of man.
Do you see that at the top?
12 tribes free paper. What are they?
It's the Black Hebrew Israelites.
Nope, it's the Yellow Deli.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Would you like it?
I don't know anything about the Yellow Deli. I'm sorry.
What am I gonna do with it?
Frame it on a wall. Say look, I found this cult paper. You want it? You already have a cult Bible, and you said you liked it. So maybe you'll find something in here.
I like to have a collection of various translations of the Bible.
Mm.
Okay. Well,
So look what I got. This is a screw up.
Mm.
The printer screwed it up, but look at that.
What is it?
This is a printing of the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, which is the interlinear Greek, Old Testament, and New Testament together in one volume.
Oh, that guy you interviewed.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
I still haven't seen that interview either.
yeah, but his is better because it's actually like a real. I mean, it's an actual real. It's thin and it's nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was able to get this one printed for me from an Indian company, but they screwed up. My Bible starts in Matthew and ends in Malachi.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So one of my subscribers posted this crazy comment. And so I thought the only appropriate thing to do was to take that comment and load it into Chat GPT, or not Chat GPT, Bing image generator. And so I made a video out of it, and that's the one I just stuck in the private chat. If you're interested,
Okay.
it's fun.
I will pull up that video immediately after we discuss Zechariah 8:19.
Okay.
This is what the Lord Almighty says: the fasts of the 4th, the 5th, 7th, and 10th months will become joyful and glad occasions and happy festivals for Judah. Therefore, love, truth, and peace. And tomorrow is the 10th day of the 10th month of the Jewish year, and that is the fast of the 10th that this Bible verse speaks about, and it is the shortest and easiest fast in the Jewish calendar. It starts at sunrise and it ends at sunset, and it is, other than Yom Kippur, the only fast that extends into the Sabbath.
Define the word fast for me.
We do not drink or eat anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's from sunrise to sunset, and since tomorrow evening is the Sabbath, it is, other than Yom Kippur, the only fast that extends into the Sabbath. Oh, actually, so Tisha B'Av, the fast of the 9th, since it is a full day fast, it starts at sunset, can in fact start on the Sabbath. That's Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is the fast of the 5th month. That is here. Okay, now for the video, you. Okay.
On December 19th, 2023, I received a custom Bible that I had ordered. Somebody in India made a pretty big blunder and didn't notice it before it got to me. The New Testament preceded the Old. My Bible starts in Matthew and ends in Malachi. This brought about the most random, incredible rant from one of my most creative subscribers. This video should by no means be taken as an endorsement of the idea contained in this mystical internet rant. All images generated from Bing image generator with mild alterations. Viewer discretion is advised. I wonder if that's not a serendipitous, blunderous, divine personalization. I would argue the Christian Bible should start with the gospel. However, doing that automatically throws off the linear order of events, so you might as well take some creative liberty as long as you get to the same place. A uniform structure is only vital at the formative level and for the church canon perpetuity. A personal Bible can, since the church Bible is intact, if you lose the plot. Are you a Matthew? I'd say you're a Malachi. Are you a Matthew? Jesus' Bible starts with him revealing himself, then revealing his other self. My Bible might be Psalms, Revelation, Gospel, starting with Timothy and Titus, then the big boys, the letters to saints, the second half of the genealogy, backward counting down from Jesus, Song of Songs, then the Old Kingdom stories, followed by an interlude from the Apocrypha, Book of Wisdom, Giants, Jasher, Adam and Eve, the extra canonicals, Enoch, Epistle of Polycarp, Martyrdom of Polycarp, Epistle of Barnabas, the Testimony of Solomon, Entities of Revelation by Mr. Vanderpool. Back to canon for the second half of the genealogy and the stories of the prophets. Excerpts from my favorites like Charles Spurgeon, Richard Rumbreath, and Martin Lil King. Then close it out with the funniest parts of the Anov checkbook and a basic field guide to guerrilla survival and firearms. Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. But this is because I'm a Barnabas, a little bit of a Tim. Definitely a Solomon, but my favorite dude is Samson. And I need to constantly check my ego in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. Read them together. No balls! My current Bible is print dated the month and year I was born. Published edition from month and year Spurgeon passed in red letter and gold edged, KJV leather bound, found in a gas station for $21, 777. My confirmation pocket Bible keeps reappearing at the church I grew up in. No matter where I lose it, states away last time. They're alive is what I'm trying to say. The books are alive, and you can't stop them or prove me wrong, because as I've stated, I'm a loon and my book is wacky. So, I wonder if it doesn't make more sense that your personalized Bible is inside out, considering you're probably a Malachi, or maybe Matt. TLDR, extra mystical ramble on in order to make the joke. I don't know, man. Maybe the book master maker who master made your books knows something you don't know about binding. You see, it's maybe not any more funny because it's not very funny. But now it at least has a backstory and a legend. Because I researched the site to make my guess. They seemed lovely, but wealthy, and you're probably good. My guess is you uploaded the PDFs.
Okay, I have two things to say about that.
Yes.
First, I think it's absolutely appropriate that a Christian Bible should start with the Gospels and move from the New Testament to the actual Bible, because Christianity is an introduction for Gentiles to Judaism, and you're just progressing forward. So it's perfectly correct that your Bible should start with the Christian Bible and end up with Malachi, which talks about the coming of the actual Messiah. It's perfect.
So, what I have to say actually is, actually, my friends and I, we were discussing this about whether we could think that the Gospels would be good, because really, what you get in the Scripture, what you get in the New Testament, is the interpretive lens whereby you use to interpret the rest of the Hebrew Bible, right? So, yeah, I think that's. I don't necessarily oppose the idea, but I do think that the idea of the Old Testament leading up to Christ is important. But yeah, it was. I don't know. He's creative. He's a creative fellow. So you had two things you wanted to say.
But the second thing is my favorite YouTube comment ever.
Okay.
So, do you know why Jordan Peterson talks so much about lobsters?
Why?
Okay. So, that's a picture of a lobster on my wall, by the way, because of Jordan Peterson.
Well, I know he says something about like lobsters having hierarchy, dominance hierarchies, and that means, and they're one of the most ancient species because it,
Yeah.
And
so that's what Jordan
existed.
Peterson says.
Right.
But
That's what he says.
The real reason, according to this YouTube comment I found, is the best. The best. So, you see, in 1990 something, or I forget when it was, the U.S. Congress, in commemoration of the Chabad Rebbe's birthday, acknowledged that the Noahide laws, like there's a commemorative like thing that passed Congress, which talks about, happy birthday to Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not supposed to actually put the incense on fire, Trey. I don't know if you knew that.
I was just waiting for you to notice.
That's not exactly how that works. Do you have charcoal, dude?
I did, but I realized it's like, why use the charcoal?
So that you don't scorch the incense. It releases over
it
time.
Smells good.
And it smells good, not like,
as opposed to ash.
Like charcoal. I don't like the charcoal. That's my problem. And the charcoal just makes me stinky.
Okay.
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
So
So
So-
the Rebbe said,
the Rebbe talked about the 7 Noahide laws, and this proclamation by Congress talks about the 7 Noahide laws. And you see, this is how the Jews are going to make it the Noahide laws actually be enforced all over the world, because Congress has passed this, right? And one of the Noahide laws is you're not supposed to eat a live animal. And Maimonides says that the punishment for transgressing the Noahide laws is death. So, Jordan Peterson talks about lobsters because he's part of the Jewish conspiracy to murder all the Gentiles who have eaten lobsters that were cooked alive.
you can cook a lobster alive, but not eat it alive.
Well, okay, so the Rebbe, this guy had done his research. There actually is a letter in which, I think it's either a letter or a video, where somebody asked the Rebbe about the Noahide laws, and the Rebbe said, you shouldn't cook lobster. You should kill the lobster before you cook it. It's cruel to cook a live lobster.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy had done his research. Like, he had the exact, like,
Wow.
he had the proclamation. He knew his stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he had Maimonides. He had figured it out. Jordan Peterson talks about lobsters because there are rabbinic courts that are going to use this to come and kill all the Gentiles who have eaten lobster. That is definitely my favorite YouTube comment ever.
Yeah, I think I've only got like one appropriate response to that, and it's this one right here. You can go ahead and share it if you don't mind. Here you go. Oops. This one. It's crazy how much information these conspiracy theorists actually have. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh no. This guy definitely believed this. He had done his research.
Yeah.
There is no question. Yes. But by the way, you can just share your screen if you want to.
Oh, I can? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that in the future next time. Yeah, that's nuts, dude.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
It was I was reading this and I was like, oh my God, this guy has done so much research.
It's sort of like those guys who are the free men on the land who know all this like naval code from like the 1700s and 1600s and try to argue that that's binding law.
The sovereign citizens and stuff.
Yeah. They're like, according to blah blah blah, and it's like, I'm sorry, dude, man, it's not 1683.
Nobody cares. Yeah. So apparently, one of the things these people have is, in order for it to be a maritime, like, they have this big thing about the flag has to have a gold border, right? Mm-hmm. It has to have like the border with the the gold fringes.
Tassels.
Yeah. And so they don't recognize the legality of any court which uses a U.S. flag that doesn't have the gold tassels on it. So some judge somewhere who was just tired of dealing with these people just decided to go get and just mess with them. And he's like, hey, I got it. It's right there. Just all your stuff. It's gone.
It's spoof. I wonder if he only pulls it out. You know, it'd be great, dude. Is if he only pulled it out when he ran into them people. Oh, well, 1 second, bailiff, change the flag.
Oh, if you haven't
All right,
seen,
court's in session.
if you haven't seen, there are lots of YouTube videos of sovereign citizens in courts, like making arguments.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And I thought these people must be like completely like out of their mind, but they're not. They've just been convinced that like the entire legal system. I mean, all of them. You can't be that smart, but like they've got problems. But they've been convinced that the legal system is so corrupt that all of these things actually work.
Yep. Yeah, I it's sort of like that guy who sent a letter to the United States and to the United Nations, and apparently they've got like a 30-day period where they're allowed to where they can respond, right? And if they don't respond within that time period, then it's just, you know, whatever, right? And he declared his land a country in the middle of the United States, right? He's got a little country. I think it's called Chad or something like that, or Dad, like the country of Dad or something like that.
Yeah, but it's not actually like he can say that all he wants. Nobody like cares.
It's called the Republic of Molossia. It's a micronation in Nevada. It's 11.3 acres of land near Dayton, Nevada. So, but it's funny. They said that we don't pay taxes, but we do foreign aid. We send foreign aid to the United States. I think this is a gamer mic, Gartham. I think it is.
Super random question.
What's up, Billy?
So how do you piggybacking off your video? How do you determine which books are Old Testament and which are New? Because like the Assyrians.
So officially, the Old Testament canon is an open canon. So
okay, but like how do you determine which are like old?
We don't. Like so like we don't have, like, the Orthodox Church has never officially declared an Old Testament canon ever. So it really depends on the language group, right? The language of that people group when they received it. So for example, the Greeks typically have the Septuagint, like in its entirety, you know, with the Maccabees, like all 4 books of Maccabees, right? And then the Ethiopians, they'll have books like, you know, Enoch, basically the same Old Testament canon that the Ethiopian Jews had, right? And then the Slavs have whatever canon that the Jews up in the Slavs had is what they have. So they have like Second Esdras and a few others. And so it's kind of broken down that way.
I really don't know which way the Ethiopian canon went. I suspect the Jewish Ethiopian canon actually came from the Christian Ethiopians.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do the Ethiopian Jews say?
Oh, they say they're the original, everything. But
right, and the Ethiopian Christians say that they got it from the Ethiopian Jews. So they have the same narrative.
Okay,
but the Jews didn't have any scribes.
Let's say you're an Ethiopian Christian, right? And you got this Book of Enoch thing, right? Mm-hmm. How do you determine if it's Old Testament or New Testament?
Well, if it was written before Jesus and the apostles, then it's Old Testament. So
Okay,
first Enoch would be an Old Testament book. Second Enoch is written sometime in the second Enoch is written in the 2nd century, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
even though it would be a continuation of first Enoch, it would still be like a New Testament pseudepigrapha is what you would call that.
If Jack jumps into the Just Chatting stream, there will be 4 of us in Los Angeles who are sitting on a computer discussing this stuff, as opposed to like actually doing things in real life. Because who would want to do that?
I'm busy.
Different example. You're a Assyrian Jew, and you got these books by Josephus. How do you determine whether
Josephus
it's
is
Old
not
Testament or
Old
New
Testament? Josephus
Really?
would be new. Josephus is from like what 130 AD. He's writing about the same time as Justin Martyr, right? 130, 140 AD.
No, Josephus was writing around the time of Paul.
Josephus writing at the same time as Paul?
Somewhere around there.
Oh yeah, okay. So he was born 37 AD and he died 100 AD. Okay, yeah, fine. Yep. Still would be New Testament, and it wouldn't be New Testament because it's not Christian.
One of my favorite conspiracy theories on the internet is that Josephus was Paul.
Why would Josephus is a clear Pharisee. So Paul is also a clear Pharisee, but
clear Pharisee, right? Like he did work for the Romans, right?
Well, he said that he was a Pharisee, and he makes this argument for the Pharisaic canon, right? The Palestinian canon, saying that all Jews everywhere, from their mother's womb, know these books to be scripture, And it's like, well, I don't know. The Sadducees and the Essenes might disagree with you there, but
so for me, the biggest question is why the Book of Acts stops telling the story of Paul where it does.
Because it was
because Luke
it finished
because Luke is trying to make a case to the whatever Roman governor that St. Paul should live, and
that's the reason he wrote the Book of Acts.
Yes.
Well, I think the Book of Acts is written in order to defend the Apostle Paul's true apostleship, right? That he's a true apostle. That's there's a few books of the Bible that are written explicitly to defend that Paul is an apostle. Hey, Chezi, how are you, buddy?
Chezi.
Hey, Jack.
I think the reason that Acts ends where it does is because everybody knew what actually happened to Paul, and it was so embarrassing that none of the Christians wanted to write it down. I just can't figure out. I can't figure out what was that embarrassing, and if he became Josephus, that would be embarrassing.
No. No. That's
you don't think that's what happened?
No, I think that it ended where it ended because Paul was imprisoned on his way to Rome. That was his goal. It ends before he dies, right? I think actually Paul is released. There are books of the Bible that are written after Acts was written, right? I think that there are Pauline epistles that were written after Acts was written. So I think that was just happened to be where it ended at that time. Because I think that if you look at First Timothy, actually, no, I think if you look at Second Timothy is written after Acts.
I think Acts
before
doesn't
Paul
end.
dies.
I think the Synaxarion continues it.
Jack, Dr.
you got
Jack.
The Synaxarion is good too. Yeah.
Dr. Jack is a genuine doctor.
A doctor of.
I'm a PhD. If that's a genuine doctor.
A PhD in what?
Physics.
Oh, okay.
That's genuine.
Yeah.
You'll never guess what Jack does for a living.
He works on the demon core.
Ooh, very close. Very
That's
close.
much closer than I imagined you would get. But yeah, you want to tell him, Jack?
I work for a company that is pioneering new manufacturing methods in zero gravity on the space station.
Cool. So not yet quite the demon core. You'll get there one day.
No, but I did talk to a
Whose baby is that?
It's mine.
ethnologist. Nice.
Let me
I
go
talked
hang out
to
with her
an
for a second. I'll be right back.
anthropologist who
I'm gonna mute.
who is doing
mute Justin.
anthropology
You can unmute
of
yourself.
space.
Yeah. Go ahead. You were saying, Jack.
Oh, I talked to an anthropologist once who wanted to interview me to write an ethnography of people who worked in and in space and people who worked for people who work in space. So, and he also had done a lot of work with the cosmonauts, and apparently they take Christian icons up with them into the space station, and they because of the higher presence of demons up there, and they bring them back down, and certain churches are founded in Russia with these icons, these spacefaring icons, prominently in the churches.
Wow.
That's cool.
This I did not expect. Hello, baby. What's your baby's name?
Hi.
Virginia Evangeline.
Hi, Virginia.
Double names.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's two names. It's like middle name. Evangeline, middle name. You don't have a middle name?
Trey doesn't even have a first name.
Yeah.
All my kids have middle names. Jack, do you use AI at work?
I do.
How-
I use it some for like helping, mock up code sometimes, but I also develop my own stuff for us.
And do you feel? I mean, maybe we're just scratching the surface, but what are your thoughts about like reaching "quote unquote" new physics due to tools like this?
I mean, I don't know. AI is a lot of like search or explore, and I'm not one who thinks, oh well, AI is not doing math or it's not doing thought because it's just looking for what you want to hear. But I do kind of think that it's not. I don't think it's super creative. I mean, I think it's a little bit creative.
Okay. I'm Jack, brother. I appreciate you, man. But I think you're dead wrong about AI not being creative. I mean, so I just made a video.
Yeah.
And I don't know, were you there to watch it?
Be happy. It was really bad. But AI graphics, asking AI to illustrate
Oh my
things.
gosh.
It's amazing.
That's how I got the logo for Fountain of Comfort. I had AI do it.
Yeah.
Dude, I got
being image
AI
generator
to
is
do.
insane.
I got AI to do. I wanted it to do the an image of a Romani man, an old Romani man in a gypsy caravan with strong perspective, and the images are just gorgeous. I mean, I guess I'm not. I do think that it's creative. I don't think that it's quite as creative as like in the context that Hezi mentioned about like finding new science and new physics. I'm not sure it's quite that creative.
Well, no, I don't think so, because it depends on our knowledge. I don't think it can do its own knowledge. I don't think it can think yet, right?
It did
think
whatever. Like it did find like new ways to make plastic, or it did find like I remember reading something about finding new chemical composition for drugs.
but it doesn't care.
Yeah,
Like
that
it
makes a
spits
lot of
out it
sense.
spits out a wrong thing and it spits out a right thing and it can't distinguish the
No, it
Well,
can.
thing.
I guess, Jack, what I first of all, thank you for answering that. I heard that you, while using these large language models, they were able to, or they're starting to recognize some sort of patterns in the speech of dolphins, right? That dolphins all have distinct names, and we see parrots have distinct names. Like the parrot calls each one of her childs with a different name. So now this is a true pattern that already existed, seemingly, but we do not have the mental capability or the compute power to recognize said pattern. So I guess my question is, when I say new science, not that AI is inventing something new, rather illuminating or shining some connection or some compute level that we just can't achieve.
Yeah. Well, I think it will do that if it hasn't already, and you gave those examples. But this brings up a point which I was really obsessed with for a long time, and I guess I still am a little bit, but just some other interests have come up too. But there are real questions about what it means to be fundamental science or fundamental physics sometimes. I mean, there's a kind of a dumb way of talking about fundamental physics, which is fundamental physics is just the physics of smaller things than you had before. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about deep physics that may not necessarily be small. The kind of physics I study is the study of materials, things that are bigger than a molecule and smaller than a continent, basically. But one of the biggest questions in my area of physics is, how does high temperature superconductivity work? And technologically, this would be great. We'd get better conductors and all sorts of improvements and stuff. But on a sort of philosophical level, this is really, really interesting, because whatever the physics of high temperature superconductivity is, it's really, really deep. And but it's also not physics that nature ever tried out before we came on the scene, unless some other aliens did it.
I mean, but isn't that us though? Aren't we the extension of nature in a certain perspective? Isn't this right now nature doing that?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can roll it all up into one in that way, and I'm not going to reject that as like wrong, but it is different, right? There's a distinction, and so This is a big topic among people who are interested in like emergent behavior, and there's a certain degree of interest in that in this little corner, and of what it means for something to have never happened before, and yet for it to be a deep pattern of the universe. Because you think of a pattern as something that you've seen before, but there may be deep patterns which haven't actually been, how about we use the word incarnated or something less.
I like that word, incarnated.
Yeah, I figured a few of us would anyway. But manifested or instantiated. Instantiated is a nice neutral term.
No, it's not. It's still very theological. I like it. It's all good.
Okay, great. Well, then let's stick with incarnated. No,
Yeah.
but what does it mean for there to be a deep pattern of the universe that has only recently been instantiated and instantiated by humans. That's a really strange thing. It's different than what we normally think of a pattern being.
I don't
Thank you
know what
for
we're
that.
talking about anymore, brother. Do you know what we're talking about,
Well,
Jacob?
Nope. Zero.
AI, its influence on physics, the fact that I don't have to repeat what Jack said. He said so beautifully. Jack, and taking
Hey,
by
Jack, I got a question for you. Hold on. Let me ask you this real quick. I'm sorry. So, you know how in quantum physics, certain particles don't exist or seem to move or something like that unless they're observed, something like that. Do you know what I'm talking
It's
about?
probably not how I would say it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, go on.
superpositions.
So if the observer is an AI, right, or like a camera
Mhm.
or something that's not human, is it still an observer?
I don't think so, but
Hmm.
you'll get very different opinions on that. And the many worlds people who are all idiots will say yes. It's still
Wait,
an
you think
observer.
many people are idiots?
Many worlds is totally wrong. Many
Yeah.
worlds ain't it.
Why? Why is it totally wrong?
And can
Infinite
you
regress.
clarify? Can you clarify about what you mean by like many worlds? As in, like, is there some physics that could allude to that, and then you're saying like that might be true, but we're not actually talking about. Are you talking about like multiverses? Or are you talking about? Well, yeah. So what are
Yeah,
you? What are you?
So there are a couple of ways people use like multiverse, but what I mean is in quantum mechanics, if you're learning quantum mechanics as an undergraduate and then as a graduate student, and what you're using every day all the time is something called the wave function. And originally the wave function was something introduced in order to determine probabilities and determine how those probabilities change over time and in different circumstances. But if you're a few generations down the pike, like I am, then you might be doing all this quantum mechanics homework and eventually start to think, hey, you know what? Maybe we should we're using this wave function all the time. Maybe we should just take this, instrumentalist metaphysic and just say, well, the wave function's what's real. And if you say that the wave function is what's real, then you're going to start to say, okay, well, there's no reason there would be multiple wave functions. There's just, in these homework problems I'm doing, I'm just looking at a very small part of the huge wave function that goes across the whole universe. And then once you do that, and then you apply superposition to it, hi. Once you say that there's just one wave function for the whole universe, then what naturally comes out of that is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
I'm sorry I have to leave, gentlemen. Godspeed. I appreciate you. Sorry to bother you.
All right.
Good talking to you, Justin.
All right. Godspeed, guys. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Babies are always welcome, by the way, on my channel.
Jack, what are your thoughts then on Eric Weinstein's theory of everything?
I don't have all of the math tools that I would need to comment on it. I have some of the math tools I need, but not all of them.
Are you making cholent?
I am making chicken soup for the Sabbath Queen.
Oh, Jack. So I heard that you are working on manufacturing in space.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a machinist.
Oh,
and
awesome.
my initial thought, it's like, it's hard enough with gravity. So how on earth are you going to do it without gravity?
Okay, so as a machinist, you'll be aware that when you've got something on a lathe or on a mill, and you're drilling into it, you generate a lot of shavings and dust and all that sort of
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
right?
I'm fully aware of that, and there's a lot of coolant that sprays everywhere.
Yeah,
So,
and on
yeah.
Earth, all that junk falls,
Right? Yep.
and that's really nice.
It is very nice. Okay, I'm with you so far.
And that's all I can really say on that matter.
Well, okay, so here's my big brain moment right here. The way that you actually machine graphite for something like plastic injection molds is that you actually have it in an airtight center with a vacuum that actually sucks it up, because you actually can't use any type of like water-based like coolant or whatnot in order to machine it. So it's like the only way I'm imagining this, it's like, okay, you have like this like, you know, machining center that you have that has to be like completely like airtight, right? Nothing can get through. And in order to even like, well, you would have the coolant and the chips go through like, they would have to go through something and then get filtered out somehow. So anyway, that's like how you could do like, I don't know, machining in space. Until someone breaks the last end mill and then they have to go back down to Earth to get another one.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things is that as you're doing this, you have to make sure that whatever you're doing in order to get that. I mean, I'm not doing machining right now. I'm not doing, subtractive manufacturing.
I understand. I'm just
but
playing with
you know, one of the things you have to think about is, okay, well, in order to mitigate all of the challenges of working in zero gravity, you also have to make sure that you don't accidentally reintroduce the problems with gravity. Of like, you know, if you're blowing or sucking a bunch of air on whatever you're doing, well, then you're putting a force on it. And well, the whole point of doing it in zero gravity is that you don't have any external forces on it.
Yep,
and
that's true.
So you got to be, there's a lot of planning that you have to do to make sure that this remains a benefit, even when you're making sure you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I can see where it's like, you would want additive manufacturing, because it's like, you know, there's barely any force involved. And so I guess it's like, it's a matter of material engineering progression that kind of has to. Oh, bye, Huzzy. Take care.
Bye, Huzzy.
Where it's like, you know, wait until hopefully, you know, material science or material engineering improves for 3D printing in order to make, well, to at least make like at least manufacturing objects in space, let alone starting to do anything chemical based.
Yeah, well, 3D printing in space is huge.
Oh, really? Oh, hold on, I gotta look this up because I bet there's videos of it.
Yeah, there's 3D printing in space. They're doing crazy stuff. They're doing like tissue growth in space. So they're making artificial retinas in space. And then they're also making what are called protein crystals. So large macromolecules, crystals of proteins, so that you can more carefully study the proteins for drug development on Earth.
Okay. Because I actually went to was it the Houston Museum of Space, I think it's called, or what? Yeah, and they had a presentation about the International Space Station, on how they do experiments up there that you can't do on Earth because of the zero gravity.
Yep.
Okay, I found something. Jack, I want you to tell me how. Let's see, where should I put this link? I guess I put it in private chat. How
You
clickbait?
can just share your screen.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Present. Share screen. There we go. So how clickbaity is this title, or is this like is this bull, or is this like a real thing?
I mean, that's not clickbaity.
Okay, all right, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Or it's not deceptive. I mean, it's exciting. But yeah, I mean, I've talked to people who are doing that kind of stuff. It's a little bit different from what I'm trying to do, because what we're doing is making stuff in space to bring down to use on Earth.
Oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
the luxury of being able to make things up there that you couldn't make down here, and then
Right.
just bringing it down. Okay.
Right. Yeah, things that are too delicate to try to make in gravity.
Let's see. There is a what is it? There is this what is it? There is this like whiskey that someone sold, and this whiskey I think went for like 6 figures. And the only reason that this whiskey was 6 figures expensive was because it went into space and came back. I don't know if you've heard of this before.
I've heard of similar things. Things like, lifestyle brands who want to ship their stuff up there so that they can bring it down and say it was in space. I mean, one of these is Adidas. Has a shoe with a certain type of foam, and they wanted to make that foam in space, and so they did that once and then brought it down. It's not a terrible idea. I've been to conference presentations about foam formation in space, and that's an interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're like, at the time there might have been NFTs in space back when that was a thing or something.
Someone bought an NFT in space.
I don't know. I often wondered if they had done that. I'm sure somebody did. Of course, the blockchain's still on the ground, right? Like, it's in the cloud, but it's in the cloud that's on the ground. So I don't know what the idea. I mean, I've sometimes thought, like, I wonder how you could do a genuine space NFT that's not just like, I don't know, yeah, that's all I got for that.
No worries.
All of this reminds me, Garth, when are you getting married?
Well, Merry Christmas to you too, Jacob.
Merry Christmas, Garth. and to your girlfriend.
Thank you very much. It will be great. I don't have to work at all next week, so it will be awesome.
I believe you. His girlfriend moved to Minnesota.
Wow.
And I love her, man.
Yeah.
And and you're still in Florida, Garth?
No,
Minnesota.
Oh,
Jack
she
was
moved
making a joke.
closer to you.
Yeah,
she moved
yeah.
closer to you. Oh, well, that's
She
great.
moved. She didn't just move closer to him. She moved closer to him in frozen hell.
It's not frozen hell yet. Not yet. So, actually, it's crazy. It's been super warm. Today it was 39 degrees outside, and there's no snow outside. So, and this is kind of typical for Minnesota weather, that like in December, it's like, even early and mid-December, it's like, yeah, like you might get some snow, but like it's still some potential that it might melt away. I've even had Christmases before where we had a snowless Christmas in Minnesota. I don't know if that's because of global warming or whatnot, but that's how.
CW is also complaining about. CW also lives in frozen hell. Yes. When I went to Minnesota, I got to meet Luke Thompson, Garth, and CW, and CW's wife. And CW's wife is the only person out of all of those that I actually would like to keep on talking to, and she won't talk to me anymore.
Oh no!
I'm not saying she won't. She hasn't talked. CW, why doesn't Lauren ever come on? Lauren should come on.
It's actually Laurel, I believe.
Laurel? I thought it was
I-
Lauren.
No, I think CW.
It might be Laurel.
Sounds about right,
Yeah.
Jacob. All the girls you want to talk to don't talk to you.
That sounds about right.
By the way,
she is married though, so like the Mishnah says, anyone who speaks too much with a woman, he will end up in hell.
Well,
Oh,
that's
it looks
not
like
true,
I'm right.
right? If she's a
What?
Canaanite, we can make some stuff work, right?
Actually, it goes on. The Mishnah goes on to say that's talking about his own wife, so much more so anyone else's wife.
Hey, boomer humor.
You're not
Now I
calling
called
Jacob
her
a
Lauren.
boomer, are you?
Apparently, this is a big no calling Laurel Lauren. What'd you say, Jack? I didn't hear you.
Forget it.
No.
The moment has passed.
Okay, so I should mention something. That I actually had a really nice Saturday. It was a couple weeks back, and I actually got to visit CW's house.
Ooh,
He has a very nice house.
I believe it.
Excellent. So
We've seen pictures of the inside of CW's house. At least I have.
the interior decoration, it's just beautiful. I love it. Anyway, yeah, it's so funny whenever people come to my place. The way that they describe my place, it's like, you kind of have a very Spartan house, because I have very, very few knickknacks or things hanging up on the wall, at least in the other rooms in this place.
Your wife will take care of that. Don't worry about it.
And that's exactly what she said to me before. So, anyway.
I'm glad you're calling her your wife already.
Well, when, she, yeah. You know what I mean.
So CW got a bunch of Rabbi Soloveitchik's books, like books that I didn't know existed on Rabbi Soloveitchik. And I don't know if he's making fun of me or not, but he said, "Why do you think my entire life has been shaken to the core? We will have to discuss." So I am wondering if he actually read all the books he got on Rabbi Soloveitchik or not, because Rabbi Soloveitchik was a giant of a man, in the good sense.
Is that, let's see, because I think one time I looked up Soloveitchik. What was his first name?
Joseph? He was there have been many, many Rabbi Soloveitchiks who are very, very, but Joseph Bear Soloveitchik is known as the rabbi. Like, that's just his name, the rabbi.
Modern Jewish philosopher. Okay. Born 1903 to 1993. And he was a scion of the Lithuanian Jewish Soloveitchik rabbinic dynasty.
Yes. His great grandfather was the Beit HaLevi, was Reb Chaim Volozhiner. Reb Chaim Volozhiner, the Beit HaLevi, like Reb Chaim Brisker. Reb Chaim Brisker was his uncle.
Okay. Jewish Virtual Library.
CW says definitely surpasses Martin Buber in profundity and erudition. Yes, he does. Martin Buber took the riches of Hasidism and peddled them to the masses.
Is Buber worth reading?
Yes. I hate to say.
Okay.
I hate to say yes, because I think, but he makes Hasidic philosophy accessible to people who don't have much of a Jewish background.
Hey, interrupting this for 1 second. I found my sticker for the organization within NASA that is tasked with sponsoring and developing this manufacturing that I'm working with. So I just wanted to show it off to you. It's called InSpa.
Nice.
There we
It's
go.
got a laser with a
It's got a laser.
DNA.
It's got DNA and a space station there.
Nice.
Anyway, I think it's a cool little patch.
Nice. Jack, are you married?
No, I'm not. Jacob's trying to help me out
See,
with that.
ladies love stuff like that. So put that on
Patches?
your water bottle or something. I'm dead serious. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jack is too smart for his own good.
He is.
Yeah, Jack.
We shall see. Yes, this is the get married and have children channel. That's.
Yeah, I know.
You may have noticed. So one of the teachings of Hasidism is you only see faults in others that exist in yourself. So I go around telling everybody they should get married, just because I'm like, I should get married.
Fair enough. Also, Jacob, I loved your you put a half-hour clip of the what do they call that show on Grow Country that they do in the morning that Luke hosts? What's it called?
It's not called anything.
Oh, what? I thought it had a name. Oh, well, anyway, you posted that half-hour clip.
It wasn't a clip. I live streamed it to my channel while I was there.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
It looked like a clip of me, or to me. But anyway, it was a video, regardless. Yes. But I thought it was a really, really good discussion because.
Well, did you see Paul Vanderklay clipped it and used it in homeroom today?
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
But excuse me.
You're excused.
But what was it? Yeah, because it's like me as a machinist that actually works in an industrial job, but also values things like local craftsmanship. It's like I think about this a lot, where it's like you were bringing up the example with the guitar, and it's like, no, the difference is that a guitar or no guitar.
Yeah.
So, because to me, it's like, so I'm going to give you another binary. It's basically industrial convenience versus like more like relational, like local craftsmanship.
Okay, can you give some background on this? I missed this.
Sorry. Basically, so it opened up with Chad talking about how over the years, because certain industries over time have been able to mass produce simple products like soap, that soap is no longer made by the common people anymore, because soap is something that, different households around the country would have to make for themselves. And that's what they would do. But once a company started marketing this soap, people would then shift over to buy that soap instead of people making it in their own home. Right. And that's like common for like so many things we own nowadays. Right.
Yeah.
It's like that could go for computers, like cars and whatnot. But it's like, like where do we straddle this line between this like wealth of industrial convenience versus us being like simply helpless consumers that don't know how to do anything, so we just keep buying the stuff?
Yeah, and the question that also comes up is when you do start making some of that stuff your own, how do you avoid offending the people who are around who may do stuff their own, but they don't do the same stuff you do on your own? And it's so easy to like say, oh well, yeah, I don't really drink Coca-Cola or whatever, and they say, oh, you're too good for that, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted, but
no, you're good.
As you do start to get individuals here and there doing their own little idiosyncratic crafts. The people who don't do the same idiosyncratic tests sometimes can get offended by the fact that you're doing something, personal, and they're still using the industrial thing.
Okay, that's just envy and like
It is, but it's a very common thing. It
okay,
happens
but
all
you
the
know
time.
what? Get over yourself. Like
I agree.
if somebody has yes, Fezzi.
Gonna say when you speak about jealousy, I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's magnified by social media in such a way that like you have a child or someone in high school that is being bombarded with a fake reality which they can no longer differentiate. So the level of I have to have this too, or if I don't, I'm inadequate. Obviously it's being skewed, but that is still the sense of reality, false reality, people are living in today. And if you can't really make the difference anymore, you are really sort of being hurtled into a life that is seemingly extremely unfair and unequal. I'm not saying that that's what it is on the ground, but that is definitely what's being perceived. So I don't know how we can't just tell them to get over it necessarily. Like Jacob, like my sons don't interact with social media. They don't have any screen time, only on Friday. So a lot of that exposure is, they don't care about drinking Prime water, but their kids in school. My son asked me, he's like, what is this Prime water? I'm like, it's nonsense. It's nothing.
That's
water.
exactly right.
I have no clue what prime water is.
It's an energy drink that's sold by some YouTube. It's exactly what Hezi described.
Okay.
But
is it kosher?
I think, if they're selling it here, then I'm saying yes. I'm sure it got an OU. But
it shouldn't be.
Right, exactly. It shouldn't be.
Prime water by Logan Paul.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Interesting. I did not
So,
know about prime water.
You would not know about prime water unless you were like, unless you're addicted to YouTube.
It is in fact certified kosher.
I wanted to say, Jack, I don't know if you were alluding to this, but you could say that in a few years from now, right, there are tools that you could buy that allow someone with your level of expertise to experience life or produce things for yourself far beyond what, let's say, your layman can, just because of, let's say, your technical knowledge. And that also is going to create a tremendous gap, right? If I start giving you tools of home printing and 3D printing and playing with DNA printers in your house, then, like, if I don't know how to interact with any of these tools or any of this technology, right, I'm just being left behind. And then, like, sorry, go ahead.
And I was just going to mention the fact, well, with all your DNA printers and whatnot, it's like, then who are the people that are manufacturing those tools? And so on and so forth. So it's like the more it's like, and this is like something that I do all the time. The more complex or more intricate your product is, the more amount of different specialties that it takes in order just to make that one product. So, and this is true of the company that I work for. It's like the thing that I do is highly specialized within my production floor. And it's just like one part of like thousands of parts that go into making this product. So versus something like, I don't know, like growing potatoes, where it's like you can have one person grow potatoes and it doesn't take an entire workforce in order to like produce said product. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that, like having really cool tools that can do really powerful things, but outside of my work, I really stick with kind of old-fashioned stuff. I mean, I do electric guitar, and you can get pretty nerdy with different guitar effects pedals and that sort of stuff. But most of the technology when it comes to electric guitars is technology from the 50s and 60s, or really earlier. I mean, from the 40s and 50s, and then just kind of improvements on various amplifier designs. But I mean, I know what you're saying, but I don't know if I can really respond to it well, because that's just not my personality. I think I'm not drawn to the high-tech tools for hobbies.
Or I guess what I'm thinking of is even just like where it falls among the supply chain. Because you talked about your electric guitar, right, and your foot pedals, right? But then it's like, how are those foot pedals getting made? How is that electric guitar getting made? How are those strings getting manufactured?
Okay, so this is my biggest pet peeve. The people who are like very artisanal. So Sherry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she makes things from literal scratch. She raises the sheep who make the wool that she turns into actual clothing, right? Like she takes grass and turns it into clothing, right? But Sherry realizes this. What allows her to do all of this stuff is the fact that she doesn't have to mine her own ore and like make the blades, right? And there are people in this little corner who actually make blades, which is beautiful. And I'm all for people doing stuff like that. But ultimately, you have to recognize if you're using tools, which of course you are, you go to the store. Like, do you realize how valuable nails used to be in the West? They used to burn buildings down just to get the nails back.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? You in the Old West, you could get whatchamacallit, you could get trees and wood, but where are you going to get nails? Right?
From Pittsburgh.
The local blacksmith.
Well, they didn't, so people don't realize this was the whole point of what I was talking about that got clipped and people were discussing. And frankly, I ended up in a stupid Twitter fight on today where I lost my temper. But
did it do with the $1,500 sandwich, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
my whole point was, dude, like it's great. I love the fact I have friends with a very good friend of mine has a hobby farm. I love visiting his hobby farm here in Los Angeles, right? And obviously, he earns enough money to actually make his absolutely unprofitable hobby farm. Yeah, I have zero clue where that thumbs up came from. Where did that thumbs up come from?
I have no idea. We're being hacked.
Yeah, but you saw it too, right?
Hold on, let me try something.
Did you see the thumbs up, Jack?
No, but this is my first time on StreamYard, so I don't really know.
All right,
are you on it? Are you on an Apple device? Yeah, I've seen this on an Apple device before, and it's like it seems to be an Apple thing.
I'm literally just in the web browser of my iPhone.
Yeah, I don't know why there was suddenly a thumbs up, like a cartoonish thumbs up next to your face.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah,
and I just thumbs up the video. I didn't see anything. So
yeah, I have no clue. Yeah, it was like.
Can I prompt it? Will it happen if I suggest to it? So Jacob, I hear everything you're saying, but what I don't hear is what is your pet peeve? What is your pet peeve that people that people don't realize that this isn't scalable, or what?
Well, that they don't realize, me saying, I wish this never happened, or that we didn't do stuff like that.
Sure.
It's like, no, the fact we have this economy that is so good and allows for people to have everything else, right?
But, and I'm just taking for granted that there's no going back, and that's why I brought up the thing about envy, is because I'm thinking about when people try to get just little footholds. And I don't think that it's like people are going to be able to do this, in any scalable way. No, but I do think that some people need to be able to do little craft work, and even if it's not profitable. And so my question is, how do we reintroduce that craft work without causing envy due to the fact that it's not scalable?
Without too much decadence.
I was also going to say, with as tools get more user friendly, it's going to allow more people to express themselves that way. I'm giving like an extreme example with like auto-tune, right? But now everyone's a singer, right? If you want to sound fantastic, you could do that today.
Well,
but do you think that's going to solve the meaning crisis?
Well, and I was gonna point this out too. It's like, auto-tune was a thing, but once it got released into the culture, it faded because everyone was like, "This sounds horrible." Like, I mean, there are very, very few songs nowadays that are heavily auto-tuned, and the ones that are heavily auto-tuned aren't like accepted by like wider audiences. Even though
are you sure about that?
Well, there's some music I know it's like slightly auto-tuned, but like I'm talking about back in like 2010, where a lot of
like the Black Eyed Peas and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, but that's not what Hezzy's talking about. Hezzy's talking about the ability for someone who doesn't have a great voice to enter into music production as a singer or something.
Well, I mean, more to be a fantastic writer and then a composer and also be the singer right now. Like, think what Mozart would have done with AI as well, right? If he could play around with such tools, and you don't even have to take Mozart, right? We could just say, I mean, and this relates to the meaning crisis, because in theory, not to sound too apocalyptic, but you could be looking at these patterns like we just spoke about, like identifying like patterns in the speech of dolphins, right? I just need to find the pattern of the best hook that's going to have you into the music, right? And then at that point, I'm just writing an algorithm of another fantastic song. But I would say, as far as the meaning crisis, I think I would love to build, some of my own furniture, right? But there's still the level of skill and time involved in that. And like, I can't do that. But if I have an actual 3D printer, and obviously there's many other hurdles to pass over here, but whether it's 10, 20, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, you start talking about,
nope, we lost the camera.
And the audio.
I think he
gets a phone call. Yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Yeah.
Hi, Shadow.
Let's see. Is CW correct, Jacob, that was your point?
This happened in Paul's.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, the one below that.
No idea. Simplicity is now a luxury of choice, and as such, never truly self-sufficient. Yeah. I mean it's and I'm fine with people having luxuries. I like luxuries. Look, having a cat is a luxury. But like, okay, just accept the fact that and that's what got me into the fight with Michael Martin. Like, when I said you have a hobby farm, he got mad. And it's like, you have a hobby farm. That's not a real farm you live on. And it's like, realize that you're doing the Marie Antoinette thing. And I'm sorry if that offends you. but it is the Marie Antoinette thing to like, oh, I'm going to go farming.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that point. So
No, I mean, so the position I take is, I think it's what Jacob's taking, which is that hobby farms might be one thing that helps solve the meaning crisis, but we also have to acknowledge that that's a hobby farm.
well, is it a hobby farm if, well, I guess you'd say it's no longer a hobby farm if you're reliant on it, right? Like if you're depending on that as your like sole source of food, basically.
Yeah, but that was part of my point. I said to Michael Martin, guess what? I don't think if your steer had, because he showed a package of beef he got from his own steer. It's like,
Right.
if your steer had died, your kids were not going to die of starvation. You know what happens when your large animal dies in rural India? You're
Like-
lucky. You're lucky if your kids don't die of starvation.
Like if it just dies of natural causes or something like that.
Yeah, or
And
gets
before it gets
killed.
cooked.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or gets killed,
Well-
or gets a disease, or crop failure is real.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's fine, but a large family farm in the United States, if your herd dies, you will be financially ruined. It'll be devastating, but your kids aren't going to die. You don't have to put the whole thing on.
And the fact is, we have farm insurance. There's a reason we have farm insurance, and
Yeah.
there's a reason why countries with farm insurance do so much better than countries without.
Yeah,
Right.
and so you don't necessarily have to say, well, you're not a real farmer if your kids aren't going to die.
No, but if crop failure isn't actually a financially, if you're not dependent on your crops, it's a hobby, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I have no problem with hobbies.
Mhm.
I'm in favor of people having hobbies. I just
Right.
want people to recognize, and there's a reason I want people to recognize this, is because it's the people who don't recognize, who think, oh, life would be so much better if we didn't have factory farming. In California, we're regulating the farms in ways that are getting increasingly impossible.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so I want to bring in another thing here as I close my windows so I don't keep my neighbors awake. But there is a dialogue that goes on sometimes on like Instagram, which is a critique of like trad wife accounts, and it's a critique of trad wife accounts from otherwise generally conservative, hard-working moms who say your trad wife life is not actually feasible. And I think that that's kind of related to what we're saying here, is that, yeah, you can make your own kombucha or you can make your own pasta, but you can't make your own kombucha and make your own pasta.
It's true. Yeah. And I mean, I keep on going back to the knife thing. You're not making your own steel.
Oh, no, you're definitely
Nope.
not making your own
Yeah.
steel.
Yeah.
You're not making your own steel, and until it comes down to steel, like everything you create with steel is just so much easier than anything you create from scratch without steel.
Okay, I'm actually really curious about this because I've seen YouTube videos of people who will, like, all they do is they just take like certain metal mixtures and then they'll like just melt it down in their own personal like kiln, and then they'll like pour it into a mold and whatnot. So I am actually kind of curious where it's like, what if you had like ore? It's like, what's the most you could do with that? Like, with like the simplest of tools. That's something.
Where
I'll
are
have
you
to-
going to get the ore? I mean, a mine requires hundreds of people.
Well, okay, sorry. I'm assuming that you have the ore already, and then like, okay, you have that, and now go from there. Like what does that process look like? Because that's actually never something I've thought about before.
Well, yeah, I mean, you probably just like, well, maybe you can make bronze if you're good, but I don't know. I mean, that's one of those little hobby horses that Father Stephen DeYoung likes talking about, is how the tin from bronze in the Bronze Age came from Afghanistan, and the copper came from Cyprus.
Mm.
So, like the logistics required to make bronze during the Bronze Age, I mean, you had to go across a continent, more or less.
Because it's like, I know that what was it? That, you know, back in like, oh, what would I pick? I don't know, like 15th century, like, you know, where they were making stained glass windows, and they had to make those stained glass windows with lead. But in order to get the lead, they had to process the lead themselves in these like small furnaces, and then like be able, in order to get it to that lead cane shape that they use for in order to make the stained glass windows. So it's like you wouldn't like. I'll say this: you wouldn't get the same quality of metal that you would, obviously, if you ordered like a bar stock metal from like a industry that processes it. But it's like you would basically have to work with some type of metal that would have to be of lesser quality.
Yeah, but I mean,
for what
lead
you're
is,
doing.
you know, things like lead and tin you can do on your stovetop, right?
Well, maybe yes, lead you could do on your stovetop.
And certainly tin also. Hey, speaking of little crafts, have any of you ever read the story The Steadfast Tin Soldier?
Nope.
Okay, so it's written by Hans Christian Andersen, and it's just a few pages long, but it's about a tin soldier, a little tin soldier, you know, like you'd see in an old board game, or you know, kids would play with or whatever. But so you wouldn't buy tin soldiers from the store, you would buy a little mold from the store, and then you would make the tin soldiers yourself in the mold. And you know, like creepy crawlers. You remember making creepy crawlers, right?
Well, my dad has one of these that you're describing. He has a lead soldier mold. So yeah.
Oh, awesome. And so the steadfast tin soldier is the runt. He's the soldier at the end, where like when you're pouring in the waffle mix into the waffle iron, it doesn't get all the way to the edge, and it's kind of a frilly mess at the edge. So the steadfast tin soldier is the one from the edge, and he's missing like a leg, I think, because it didn't get all the way in. But it's a love story, but it's, oh gosh, you got to read this story. You can find it online. It's only like 2 or 3 pages, and it is a soul-crushing, heart-wrenching, just devastating story.
Oh, I bet. So, what's it called?
The Steadfast Tin Soldier.
The Steadfast Tin Soldier. Okay. Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah, who's the same one who wrote, you know, The Little Mermaid and several others.
Yeah, that's where I recognize the name from.
Yeah. But I mean, I think things like that, things like making simple things for children are a good step in helping out with some of the alienation, to use the Marxist term, of the meaning crisis. And no, we're not going to make our own, you know, genetically engineered bugs, but we can make creepy crawlers in the little creepy crawler oven.
Or it's like, or at the very least, just show them like that it's like that it is indeed possible for you to make something. Period.
Mhm. Teach them how to solder.
I know, but that has to. I mean, the early stages of that, to have, even if you have the technology to do that, to have someone have the discipline to sit down, actually follow through. So I mean, I at least I hope that my kids playing with Lego or my daughter playing with Magnetiles, these are all introductions to that kind of mindset of like, you could manifest something new, you could create something new, but that requires time and effort and frustration. There's this Lego called Technic Lego. It's like a different. So when I introduced that to my son, he was like excited because it was like a new kind of Lego, but it came with like a new level of sophistication, right? With like how those pieces connect. And
Yep.
it was like, there was moments of there of some frustration.
Yep.
But now that he's sort of powered through, it allows him to build like at a completely different level, right? So then he basically took that and applied it to his, let's say, more classic Lego, and now we have like all these like random mutations in the playroom of all different kinds of stuff. But
well, that's actually why I say have them make something, because so that way they actually experience that frustration. So that way, it's like if they encounter more frustration in the future, they won't have to feel as like overwhelmed by it compared to the last time that they were frustrated. So, because that's honestly like that's like part of machining school. Like before you like.
So I try to, like they get their Lego set, or like, I mean, his younger brother also started joining. They're trying to figure out who's the Lego who's the master builder, right? They're arguing, but it's very like, take it out. I say like your plan of attack, right? Like set out all the pieces, put them by color, right? So when you're looking for your piece, you know where to look for. So there's a whole ceremony beforehand. But I was happy when I saw him apply that principle in some other game he was playing. And he was like, I'm just going to lay this all out. And I'm like, that's it. That was the point. The point was that you could now take this and figure out how to do this. Like, it doesn't really matter whether it's like you're building Wolverine or like this ship. It's more about, can I apply this for the next game? So I don't know. I don't know. I'm nervous what kind of technology they're going to be moving into and what that allows them to do. And I hope I'm giving them the right tools to participate.
Andrew is asking, what is your favorite psalm?
Song?
Psalm.
What's my favorite psalm? I think Jacob asked me this once as well. My favorite psalm. My favorite psalms are the psalms that the Levites sang at the temple.
There you go. There you go, Andrew.
Specifically, Andrew, you had to ask, there's a term called sing a new song, shir chadash. And there's a sense where the way I at least envision it is the Ark of the Covenant gets returned back to Israel. There's the famous story of David like crip walking in front of the Ark. He gets called out for that. But either way, the Ark is finally back. And he puts it in this tent near his own tent, right? There's no temple yet. And in a certain sense, David knows like this is like the real. This is like the Ark of the Covenant. The tablets are inside. What do I do with this though? Like there's no like a protocol yet that he has of like, what am I doing with this thing right now? And he goes to the Levites and he says, sing a new song. Like do something. It like react to this. And to me, like that is like the most genuine version of, let's say, those songs or those psalms, which is, just an expression of wanting to connect, to transcend, to recognize the holy and try to interact with it. So I think at times psalms can be extremely powerful.
My favorite psalm is the psalm for Wednesday.
The Levites on Wednesday. That's a good one.
Yeah. You remember which one it is?
That's Geut Lavesh, no?
Kel Nekamot.
Yeah.
God of vengeance, show thyself.
What is that?
Oh,
And Jacob, because I don't know if I could listen as well. I told you about I'm gonna give you a good Yanuka story.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So first, do you want to explain to our friends over here who the Yanuka is?
He's the guy in that picture.
He's the guy in the picture. He is a
He's 36 years old, and he is a prodigy. The word
Yes.
Yanuka means child prodigy because at the age of 13, he started wowing people. And if you go on YouTube, you can see videos of crowds of graybeards sitting there listening to him talk. And I was absolutely amazed at his depth and breadth of knowledge of Torah.
little tidbit, which is I think actually quite profound, is at the end of many of his classes, he ends it with a piece of music that he plays, which I think is also it's very, very
He plays
beautiful.
the keyboard, yeah.
So the story. So I have a friend, rabbi friend of mine. I think you've seen him once, Jacob. Like maybe you've seen a video of him. Rabbi Harry. He works a lot with like the lost tribes and
The redhead.
The redhead.
Yeah, who caused the murders of several Jews, I'm sure, with his stupidity. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so he is walking with his there's basically three stories. I mean, two stories and a third one that's really the crescendo over here. But he is walking in the middle of the night. He's going to this mikvah, to this ritual bath, and on the way there. Sorry, that's the second story. The first story, he's walking down the street. He took this little shortcut. He's with his son and his friend. They go pray early in the morning, and then he's walking and he sees this group of like 100 men and the Yanuka, and they're walking, and the Yanuka's in the middle, and they're walking towards him, and the Yanuka stops and looks at him. It looks at Rabbi Harry, and they smile, and then Rabbi Harry says, "Oh, the Yanuka." And he's like, "It's so funny. I was just talking to someone else, and now I'm running into you." So Yanuka smiles and asks him his name. And the students are taken back because he's been on a Ta'anit Dibur the entire day. He hasn't said anything the whole day.
Oh, wow.
So he looks at him, smiles, says, like, "Who are you?" They start schmoozing. He starts telling you about the lost tribes, things like that. Yanuka's like, he's like quoting back all his sources. Like, you know, he knows what he's talking about. He gives a big smile, gives him and his son a big bracha, and they're on their way. Okay? Then 2 weeks later, he's walking to goes to this ritual bath in the middle of the night. He sees the group of the 100 again. They're walking. The Yanuka's there. Yanuka stops, has a smile on his face. He says they continue off exactly where they left off. Like the Yanuka remembered like the last thing they said, and they keep on talking about the lost tribes, Harry's explaining to him about like plant medicine that he does. He's listening in. He's talking about like different shita. They talk, they leave, okay? And they continue on. The third story is Harry is with his son and again, another friend, and they're in the old city, and they're leaving, and they're going through this shortcut towards like the snake path. It's the space in the old city. And they always cut through this door of this old church. So they're going, Harry gets to the door. The door is bolted with these huge locks, top, bottom, on the sides. He pushes, it's locked. Okay, he starts tracking back. On the way back, he sees the group of the 100 again. And the Yanuka's there. Harry sees them. The Yanuka says hi. They start talking. Harry's like, "There's nowhere to go. It's locked. Like, we need to turn around." The Yanuka smiles and says, like, "It will open for us." They keep on walking. Harry's like, "I'm standing front and center. What is this guy talking about?" So Harry's walking with him. They're walking. They get to the front door. Harry goes up to the front door and shows them. They're like, look, it's locked. So they're all standing.
The front door of what?
Of this gate that they were trying to cut through, this shortcut that Harry went earlier that saw was locked.
It's a gate through the old city?
It's this side gate in the old city if you're going through the shortcut to like cut through the old city.
Okay.
So the Yanuka stops and looks at the gate and stands there for 5 minutes quietly. And they're all, and the rest of the crew is just standing there. I corroborated this with his son as well. They're standing. Then after 5 minutes, where no one's saying anything, the Yanuka goes to the door, slightly pushes it open, and it just swings open. They're all like flabbergasted by this. They're like, what's going on? Harry starts taking pictures of like the door bolts because he says then people were trying to close the door, but you couldn't close it because the bolts were still where they're supposed to be, but the door is open. And as Harry's telling me this, I don't know what to really make of these things ultimately, but like Harry's convinced that he's going to be like the head of the Sanhedrin. He hasn't gone as far as calling him the Mashiach, but he thinks that the Yanuka should be the head of the Sanhedrin. And so I thought you'd appreciate that story.
I very much appreciate that story. And I'm glad that the Yanuka is making such an effort to be Makarev, all the people around you to Torah. May all of you do tshuva one of these days. So Chazi's friend Harry goes on this black supremacist YouTube channel.
Oh boy!
And he's a ginger. As this.
Wait, a Caucasian ginger?
Yes, he's a very Jewish-looking Caucasian ginger.
Oh boy! Okay.
And he's just being played like a fiddle by this black supremacist, black Hebrew Israelite guy.
I disagree.
And he has no clue how he's like just feeding into the black Hebrew Israelites story of, it's actually the black people who are the real Jews, we're white usurpers who are lying and should all be destroyed and killed and murdered. Like, it was just, I was like, this guy, it's like, oi!
He does a tremendous amount of work with which he's identified, I mean, not himself, through his rabbis before him, as the lost tribes. So the Igbo tribe and the Pashtun tribe in Afghanistan. And he's building he's going to be launching it soon. Jacob, you might even be surprised. He might be going on Lex Friedman soon. I
would watch that.
Yeah. He's
the video you sent me was embarrassingly bad.
Maybe watch it again. Maybe you'll decide you're also a black Israelite.
I almost did a commentary video. Like you almost goaded me into doing a commentary video.
You could, by the way, I mean, you could speak to him.
Jacob,
yeah.
Oh, hold on. Speaking of things on YouTube, Jacob, did you listen to the Vervaeke, Ian McGilchrist, and Schmachtenberger video?
I was just going to mention, I am going to have to do a commentary on that video, as much as I dislike Schmachtenberger, because Vervaeke posted on Paul's video that he wants people to make commentaries on it. And so I kind of take marching orders like that. So I'm going to have to do and it's a 3-hour video with Schmechtenberg.
Hold on. I got a really good clip for you that I want you to watch. Hold on. Let me...
Can you also comment about how small Schmechtenberger's hands are? The smallest hands in the world. It's awkward even now that I said it. Your life won't be the same. Seeing those hands move around is very disturbing.
Okay, let me know.
His beard is disturbing.
Hold on. Let's see. Okay, how's the volume?
Cars, all these people are
How's the volume? Is that good?
That's what, yeah.
Okay.
wrapping into this entire field. But Fuller makes this argument in one of his recent books. Look, really try to get, really try to get that the Trinity within Christianity is saying that relationality is primordial. Really get it. Don't think of this as three guys stuck together. Think about them completely interpenetrating, interconnecting, relationality, intelligibility, the logos, the reality, the indwelling in people, the spirit. See, all of that is deeply, profoundly relational. Go back and start to practice your practices that way, live that way, and then people are going to find different things relevant and salient in the world and their relationship to the world. And it could open up it could switch people from the having mode to the being mode. It could make a difference in their relationship to their spouses, but also in their relationship to economic systems. And you understand.
Okay, so I want to.
Yeah.
Yes, the pragmatic question I'm asking.
So that's the clip, and I immediately thought of you, Jacob, when I
that is the argument people bring up constantly. It is by far the best argument for the Trinity. It is something that Pastor Tanner brought up, must be almost 2 years ago now on this channel. I have addressed it many, many times. That description of the Trinity could be a description of the 10 Sphirot. There is no reason whatsoever why that concept is one of three. It is one versus many. And the one and the many is actually something that the Bible talks about, this juxtaposition of one and many. Mayim rabim lo yachlu lechabot et ha'ava. The waters of many cannot quench love. It's a verse from Song of Songs. And if that is what the Trinity, your argument for the Trinity is, my question is, why are you hung up on this number 3? And which returns me to one of my favorite verses from the Christian Bible, where I found Jesus talking about the Trinity. He says, before the rooster crows, you will betray me 3 times.
Okay.
That's Jesus talking about the Trinity. The betrayal, three-time betrayal of Jesus.
Well, then it would have been 9 betrayals.
No, because that's the only place, there are very few places where Jesus mentions the number 3. If Jesus was the incarnation of God, come down to earth to explain how to understand the Torah so much better, why didn't Jesus ever talk about the importance of the number 3?
Rabbi.
So my
Oh!
Hey!
He is here. We have summoned him.
Was that deliberate?
I actually wanted to go to sleep, but since you're here, you have to explain those memes you sent me.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to pull them up. But go ahead, say what you wanted to say. Let me pull up these memes.
I need to make a quick comment to the Father, which is that in a recent Lord of Spirits episode, you said that you don't think that anyone is going to Lord of Spirits for their critique of Das Kapital, and that you don't think that you don't want us to think about the dialectical materialism as the sort of materialism you're talking about. But in the very early days, I sent a question which was rejected from the Facebook group, which was, hey, when are you going to talk about the fetishization of commodities?
Yeah. Well, what I said, if you listen carefully, was that if I tried to do that, Ancient Faith would pull the plug after about 15 minutes. If I tried to do a detailed critique of Das Kapital live on air.
I see. Okay.
So it's not that I couldn't do that. It's not even that I wouldn't potentially be interested in doing that. It's just Ancient Faith wouldn't have it.
Well, my question never made it through.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's Father Andrew in the Facebook group. I can't account for.
oh, you were still on Facebook at the time.
So even when I was on Facebook and I was an admin in the group, I would basically just go and approve people and things that I knew would irritate him. So if I saw that at that time, it was probably I didn't think it would irritate him enough.
So
I
Father
didn't approve
Stephen,
it.
I'm guessing it was the Trinity thing that which triggered you.
I wasn't really triggered. I was just
Oh.
kind of not really tired yet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Hanukkah memes. See, this is the fact that you didn't get them points to the need for these memes.
I got the first one. The first one I got. So this is the one I did get. So that one I understood.
Right. So I made these Hanukkah memes several years ago because it seemed to me that by losing the books of the Maccabees,
Yeah.
a lot of Jewish communities had lost one of the most badass pieces of their heritage connected to Hanukkah.
Okay, I have to say I am very, very, very against militarism in Judaism. I am very, very. I like to point out that the rabbis were not fans of the Hasmoneans.
Yes.
And their concept of the Messiah. Like when Paul Vanderklay says that Jesus came to reinvent the idea of the Messiah or whatever, right? I'm like, no. That idea of the Messiah, which is the Hasmonean idea of the Messiah, which is priest, king, everything, all right.
Overthrow the Romans and make Judea great again.
Yeah, like no, that's that. So yeah.
But think back to when you were like 13, 14 years old.
I was wearing a Tzahal. I was wearing an IDF t-shirt.
Which is cooler, this stuff or a dreidel? Like, come on, just be honest.
This
As
stuff.
a 14-year-old boy. Okay.
This stuff is definitely more a 14-year-old boy's conception of Judaism
of cool
than a 90-year-old rabbi's. Okay. This one I didn't quite get.
Okay, so in Second Maccabees, there is this scene where they managed to bring down one of the Seleucid war elephants.
Eliezer dies doing this.
And that whole scene was swiped by Tolkien and put in the Lord of the Rings.
I was about to mention Lord of the Rings.
Right? And so to me, again, these are memes aimed at the 14-year-old Jewish boy.
I read Lord of the Rings. I don't remember this. Oh, with the attack on Gondor. Yeah. Okay. And this one I didn't get either.
Right. Well, this is an etching of Judas Maccabeus telling the Greeks to buzz off. So I'm using Spiro as the prototypical Greek name. Even though it's a little anachronistic.
I see. Okay.
I made these several years ago and released them into the wild.
I see.
Hoping they would spread.
Apparently not.
Yeah, I don't think. At least they haven't penetrated actual Jewish circles. Right. I don't know where they are in Christian circles, but
so Matthew, who you did meet on one of these streams, introduced somebody to my Discord server who is actually a genuine Orthodox, like real rabbi, and he knows his stuff really well. And I am going to Seuda Shlishit with him on Saturday, and we are I am very excited about his participation. There isn't enough news yet for me to be like, hey, Father Stephen, I would love to hear you guys talking. But the more I've been talking to this guy, the more I would love to hear you speaking. And I was just this morning on my walking my dog, I was thinking, okay, I told Father Stephen I would get a rabbinic court to listen to him explain to us how Paul of Tarsus actually was Talmudic in Romans 7, and this guy is actually an ordained rabbi who can convene a rabbinic court. So you might just get it. And he knows Greek.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, one of the few rabbis I've ever met who knows Greek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew a Reform rabbi who not only knew Greek but got a PhD in New Testament, but he was kind of a weirdo.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah, this guy is obviously not your normal Orthodox rabbi, but he has ordination from a very serious. He has serious rabbinic ordination. So yeah, from Rav Stern in Bnei Brak. Chezi, what did you expect somebody from Bnei Brak to show up on the Discord server? You're muted. Chezi.
I don't know what to expect anymore from your Discord server. That's why it's also beautiful, right? I mean, like these kind of conversations were not happening 500 years ago. So we're all moving closer together and peeling off more layers of inconsistencies and confusion. It's good. We both need each other to recognize each other.
I'm very surprised to see you this close to Christmas. I figured you would be extra busy, but also maybe people don't bother you as much around Christmas.
Well, up until this week, I was super busy to the point that it was getting annoying. Where I'm getting all these emails, and I'm like, why do we have to deal with this before Christmas? We need to have a Zoom meeting about this and a Zoom meeting. I'm like, but this week it finally pretty well tapered off. I've got services starting tomorrow. I don't know if you'd like the service we're going to do tomorrow or not. On one hand, there's a lot of readings from the Hebrew Bible. On the other hand, we're interpreting them as being about Jesus. So,
speaking of which, on Friday, I actually saw the entirety of Handel's Messiah in a basilica, which is exactly what you just said, De Jong. It's basically because it actually. Wait, it's over there. Hold on, let me get it quickly.
I'm actually wondering if you had a chance to look at that chart at the back of the Chitat that I gave you.
So yeah, let's see here. So this is the whole Messiah is the concert itself, it was 2.5 hours long. And so it starts with, a bunch of verses from Isaiah chapter 40. And then let's see. And then the first, what was it? Let's see. And then there's one here that's Isaiah 7:14 and Matthew chapter 1:23 that says, "Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us." And then another Isaiah 40 verse.
It's young woman, not virgin.
It's what?
Young woman, not virgin.
It is actually. I gave a lecture on that last week at a college. College.
I would hope that both of those would be the same. But anyway,
There's some linguistic slippage there because of that.
There is a Hebrew word which refers to a woman and her virginity, which is
Betula.
used in the Bible, Betula.
Yeah.
And that's not the word that's used there.
Yeah.
So
It's all mine.
I wanted to point out a few things on this chart. First of all, you'll notice that the 10 Commandments are on cubes.
Yeah.
Right. And then, yeah, I was just wondering what you thought of this whole thing.
Well, I haven't gotten to go through the whole thing.
No. I meant this page. Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. Litas might take you a few years.
Yeah.
I don't know if you will. In fact,
My Hebrew's decent, but
Jacob, what do you mean? What do you mean they're in cubes?
Oh, so Chabad does cube does not do rounded.
Well, that's because that's wrong. Obviously, it can't be rounded. The Talmud clearly speaks about it not being round.
Right, but so Chabad. So this picture, it's at the.
I got you. That is a little crazy, by the way, that the round tablets are everywhere, like in synagogues, on prayer shawls, on everything.
Oh, so there's a particular person, I won't call a rabbi, who's very well known and professor at a university where he has no business being a professor at, who wrote a certain book, and he said that the cubic whatchamacallit, 10 Commandments is one of the ways Chabad is starting its own new religion and is like Christianity.
I mean, there are. I've read an interesting article about how the tablets were actually like more cylinder shaped from like this beautiful stone, and they were sort of written all the way around, and you would sort of use it to roll sort of ink, and that would allow you then to like roll it on parchment and then create like a print basically. And you have like these two sapphire looking and that also relates to the Midrash talking about how the letters came all the way through and you could see it from both sides, and that if you had something like some sort of stone that had it carved in, that would happen.
Right, and it was two copies, not half and half, the way most Christian depictions.
Well, most Jewish depictions also do the half and half. I mean, we talk about like the first half being between man and God. So,
there's a beautiful story about so the Midrash says that Moses fashions for himself or makes these tablets, and the Midrash says that God gives Moses the leftovers from this very, very precious stone. This it's called Sapir Yon, and in the background of this, we know that that Moses separates from his wife. He gets called out of this by his sister, right? She's not happy about this, and there's a sense where Moses now decides, I'm going up to the mountain. I'm done with this sort of human interaction as far as like me and my wife, and he goes up, and the tablets come down. The tablets get shattered. And it's obviously devastating for everyone. When he goes back up for the second tablets, the Midrash says that he also fashions from the remnants of the first tablets this beautiful wedding ring, this beautiful stone. And when he comes up from the mountain, he then presents it back to his wife, as in this is a reconciliation both from God to the Israelites and from Moses and his wife again. And he gives her this ring. And he says this line, which we all say today in weddings, like we say today that you are being sanctified like Moses sanctified. So we still use that as terms today. So this was another sense where you could see this second wedding in a certain sense between Israel and God, and between Moses and Zipporah as well.
Yeah. The thing with the two copies comes from the way in the ancient Near East, the way you handled a berit, right, of this type was that typically, so this is of a type, we have examples of it from the Hittites, from the middle of the second millennium BC. And the fact that like the book of Deuteronomy follows this format almost exactly is one of the best evidences for how old it is against modern scholarship. But it was a type of berit, a type of covenant, right, that was given by a high king to a vassal king that was issued. And so there would be two copies made. One would be given to the king, right, to outline the expectations. The other would be put at the feet of the idol of a god in the temple to call that god to be a witness. So you have both copies in Israel's case put into the Ark of the Covenant. That's the footstool, right, of God's throne, because he is both the God and the king. Right? So he has both copies. You're muted because
and get the throne, there's obviously that tension over there, which is clearly there's an appropriation over here of, the cherubs, right? This is being brought in from, the other cultures. I mean, what's unique about it that there's actually no rider, right? It's invisible, and that's
Right.
sort of the sense. But
Right.
it is crazy to think that God is sort of electing that sort of appropriation, even with the terminology that he's using, like Egyptian terminology when we're dealing with the whole Egyptian saga. But that we bring that in, and a few some sections earlier in the Bible when God is saying that to the Israelites, you shall not make for yourself a mask of gold or silver. There's a terminology also where he's saying for yourself, but not for me. Like I still might fashion for myself some sort of structure from gold, which you're going to still use to worship me. However, you, the Israelites, can't do so out of your own accord. But again, it's very spooky. It's very curious what those cherubs are doing there.
Well, but so by using those, right, by using a form that people are familiar with, but then varying it, that accentuates the variance, right? That accentuates what's different because it's the same in all the other ways, right?
Same in Psalms, like the rider of cherubs.
So
Cloud
if you look at Egyptian processional barks from that period, right, which are basically constructed the way the Ark of the Covenant was, you have Isis and Nephthys on top of them, these two winged goddesses with their wings toward the center, right, just like the cherubs on the Ark. But then in the Egyptian barks, you then have an idol of a god being overshadowed by their wings. So when the Ark of the Covenant is made according to a similar pattern, but there's no idol there, that accentuates the fact that there's not an idol there, right? That's the first thing you would see when you saw it was, where's the right? Where's the idol that's in the middle, right? Where's the...
Well, I mean, I have to say, this is one of the points I make with talking about Jesus as a hypostasis, right? It's like the whole point of the temple was, look, we have this temple and there's nothing there. That's the point. There is nothing there. And so that's important that there be nothing there. And a recognition. I mean, there are people who will say that that Maimonides saying it, that God has no body is, I mean, I've even heard people say it's his innovation around the year 1000. And it's like, no, the Jewish idea that there's nothing there, that you did not see a shape, is directly stated in Deuteronomy.
Right.
Is it Deuteronomy or Exodus or both?
But there is a tension there, because there are also places in the Torah that refer to, I just did a Bible study earlier tonight where in Exodus, and right? The Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the elders of the people go partway up Mount Sinai, and they see the place where God's feet stand.
Yeah.
Right.
Look. Yeah.
And he takes his hand and writes on the tent. So there is a sense in which it's a different sense of body. I think we ultimately agree on this, but there is a sense in which God is spoken of as having a body.
Right. But
right.
that ultimately is within the same milieu of, because what I get from Christians, and I'll get even from Eastern Orthodox Christians, but I get especially from Protestants, is, oh, well, Jesus is the theophanies of the Old Testament. It was Jesus who spoke at Sinai. And it's like, well, what are you saying there? Because it's very clear you saw no form, right? And
right,
like,
well, except for Moses.
Ultimately,
Moses
it says about Moses.
Right?
It says about Moses, you cannot see my face, right?
Right. In the same chapter, 9 verses earlier, it says he spoke to God face to face.
Right.
Or literally mouth to mouth, but yeah.
Chazi, you keep on. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's face to face as one sees his fellow man.
Yeah.
Right. So there, and that relates back to Jacob also seeing Esau, right? And says Kira iti pneiel, and I seen. So again, there's a sense where like I am recognizing God within the other, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's seeing like a form.
Well, there's a tension there.
There's a tension there,
right? There's in Genesis, Abraham. God appears to him several times.
Like 3 people.
Yeah. So there are clearly times, right? And so what Christians are grasping at and fumbling at when they tell you that is something more nuanced than that. Right? Which is the idea, which is a Jewish, pre-Christian Jewish idea, albeit one that, as far as I can tell, Judaism today largely rejects. That's the whole idea of the Logos, the Memra, right? That was an idea within Judaism that this is the God who people are seeing and interacting with.
Oh, I mean,
and
the idea that
God proper, right? And then in the New Testament, within that, the frame is this is the person who is then manifest as Jesus of Nazareth, right? And the one who he calls the Father is sort of the God proper who no one can see and no one can, right?
So this goes back to what I was saying to Garth about why you're stuck on the number 3. It's this idea of the canonical, right? God reveals himself. All of his revelations are beyond our complete grasp. And none of the things we perceive of God are a complete understanding of God, because he is infinite and we are finite. And that does not stop God from, in many, many ways. And that's why I keep on going back to 1 and many as opposed to 1 and 3.
So I guess I bugged you about this verse before, but like, and this is my take, and you can tell me what you think about this, DeYoung. That I think of the verse of the Great Commission, where Jesus calls to baptize in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And then what? And so
you haven't heard Jacob's greatest hit on that verse yet?
What was it?
And which part of the Trinity is John the Baptist? Because Christians were baptizing in the name of John the Baptist, right? There was the baptism of John.
Well, but then they were rebaptized after that in the name of the Trinity.
So, like,
where is this? Hold on.
In I believe it's in Acts. It talks about.
It refers to the baptism of John. But I mean, St. Paul uses the language of the people who crossed the Red Sea being baptized into Moses.
I did not know that, but there you go. No, I mean,
yeah. So that's
to do something
yeah.
Lashem, right? In the name of, in Hebrew, has a meaning that's actually like this is language that's used a lot to why, like in the Haggadah, Passover Haggadah, it asks again over and over again, we do X, Y, and Z l'shem ma, for in the name of what? Why are we doing it? So like this translation of in the name of it, like into Gentile culture, has just been so wildly off from a Jewish understanding of l'shem, right? We l'shem yichud, right? In the name of the unification is something like in Sephardic Sidurim, it's prayer books. It's all over the place. There's a lot of things we do in the name of in Judaism over and over again.
So the verse before of the verse I said with the Great Commission says that Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So then he says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and of the Holy Spirit, because those are the three that possess the authority.
Hold on, the verse doesn't say those are the three that possess authority, does it?
Well, verse 18 is all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Mm-hmm. And then after it says, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations.
Okay.
So
I think
does the therefore.
Okay, you are doing the KJV thing of taking the English and parsing it, whereas that was likely originally said in Aramaic. And if you're going to parse that language, you should actually be parsing what that language means in Aramaic, not trying to translate it into Greek and then translate it into English and then parse it.
Well, so I guess what's the lost context though through translation for those verses then?
The lost context is a rabbi saying all authority on heaven and earth has been given to me is not as shocking as it sounds to you, and saying to do something in the name of X, Y, and Z is not as shocking and weird and foreign as it sounds to you. It's
the core there is that it's about reclaiming the nations, the Gentiles. You're to go to all the nations and teach them all that I have commanded you. Right. And it's part of the theme after Christ's resurrection, Judea, Samaria, and all the earth, right? Like not just, right? You start there, but then also go out to the nations. But to me, so I understand what you're saying, Jacob, with the one and the many philosophically, right? But
exegetically.
Well, exegetically is where the rub is, right? Because the Spirit of God appears as an agent, right?
Right.
Throughout the Hebrew Bible.
Yes.
Okay, so, right, that's a clearer case. Okay.
See, okay,
but
the Kabbalists go through the entirety of Tanakh, and this word echad and yachid, right? That root carried out through, and rabim, especially mayim rabim, right? And especially through the Psalms, where you're talking about God al mayim rabim, right? God upon the many waters, right? This is exegetically a tension which the Kabbalists are all over, And
Right.
when you
So-
reduce it from many to 3, not only do you get this 3 out of nowhere, but you're missing out on all the places in the Bible where it talks about the many.
Right. But that's not what we're doing.
I think it's like
Because
sorry, go ahead.
In Orthodox theology, we make this distinction. This is one of the things I've learned from talking to you, is that this isn't a distinction, as far as I can tell, within Judaism, between a hypostasis and one of the divine energies.
Yeah, I've had difficulty finding exactly where you guys go energies, because
Right. And I think this is a difference.
any hypostasis of God is not God by definition. And that's why our blessings are in the second person, Baruch Atah, right? Because ultimately we talk about the highest name for God is Atah, is you.
Right. So because it's direct address. Yeah. So if you look at like what St. Gregory Palamas lists the divine energies, he starts with the divine names. Right. And that these all reflect the activities of God in the world.
Okay.
Right. They're not God's essence. This is the distinction between essence and energies. Right. These names aren't talking about his essence, who he is in himself, but they're talking about his activities in the world as they're revealed to us and as we experience them.
So
Right.
we talk about essence and emanation, and any emanation does not capture, it is impossible to capture God's essence.
Right. Right. So we would say, like, for example, right, St. John can say God is love, but we would not say love is God.
Thank you. I've been trying
Right.
to tell Christians that
Yes.
a lot.
Right.
We agree.
That is not reversible.
Where were you when I was in middle school?
Because love is one of the divine energies, right? But it does not account, right, the fullness of God. So we have this category of energies, right? So when we talk about 3 hypostases, we're talking about something different.
You're saying God's essence is in 3 hypostases?
No, they share one essence. That's God's essence is his essence, right? But where we go, for example, this is something I'd like to do sometime too. I know we now have this list.
I'm still like every day, I'm like, when is he gonna walk me through Romans 7?
It's gonna be after the holidays. Let me tell you.
Okay, because Romans 7, like,
Yeah.
I'm still, you wrote a check. I'm not
Yeah.
sure you're behind can cash.
Yeah. No. I can cash it. Now you may just totally disagree with what St. Paul is doing, but I think I can show you what he's doing. Right? I don't think I'm going to win you over into thinking, oh yeah, I'm on board with St. Paul now. Sign me up to get baptized.
I just want it to sound Talmudic, because
yeah.
all I hear is a charlatan trying to sound Talmudic.
Yeah. But I want to go, this is the Hebrew, right?
Okay.
I want to go through like the Hebrew of like Proverbs 9 with you.
Hebrew of Proverbs 9.
Which is one of the key texts.
Okay.
Where it talks about, this is literally where we get a lot of our language about the Logos, right? Where it talks about God begetting, actually in feminine terms, God giving birth to his wisdom.
Proverbs 9.
And then forming the world. I can get you verse numbers. Let me.
Well, Chokhmot Banta Beta, I mean, the Kabbalists spend more ink on those 3 words than I've ever been able to read.
Oh, maybe 9 isn't right. 8. It's 8, not 9. Beginning around verse 22.
tikra utvuna titen kola.
You can add that to verse 22 for what I'm talking about.
Verse 22. Hashem Kanani Reshit Darko Kedem Mifalav Ma'az. I mean, this is from Koneh, right? Kanani Reshit Darko Kedem Mifalav Ma'az. You realize there are 50 references in the Midrash to this one verse.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that a huge amount of early Christian discussion surrounded this verse and this whole section.
Wow, I'm not sure I've seen many places with 50, and yeah, so let's see what the Malbim says.
Yeah.
Okay, Malbim. Hashem Kanani Reshit Darko. HaChokhmah hi tzurat kol ha'olamot. Wisdom is the shape of all the worlds. Kulam na'asu v'nitkanu nimdodedu v'huchanu lefi chukei HaChokhmah. All of them were established, measured, and aligned according to the statutes of wisdom. Uba va'al yada ukemidata uketavnita nitayru v'nistaklalu kol ha'olamot merosh va'ad sof. Basically the same thing he said before. Ve'et derech Hashem darko harishon lahotzi habriya min ha'efes. So God at the very beginning created from nothing. Shezeh mechuneh b'shem derech, because that is called a way, a derech. Okay. Ki reshit hitgalut haratzon hakodem, because the beginning of the first revelation of God's will Haya b'ma she'etzil atzilut kadosh, atzilot, that he emanated holy emanations. V'nora shebo gala hadrachim shebam yenaheg et ha'olam. And the wonder of it is that through it he revealed the ways in which the world would be run, the chesed ugvura umidotav, through mercy and justice and the various characteristics, hakadoshim, rachum v'chanun erech hapayim v'tiferet, hayta hachochma roshit darko. Wisdom was the first of this. Shedarkei hagato asher netzlu be'atzilut harishon, because all of the emanations which were hidden were all established upon foundations of wisdom. And as the translation of Yonatan ben Uziel puts it, in the beginning, this was the beginning in wisdom. So after God created the ways of wisdom, did he start actually creating. Sha'az nolad haben habachor lo shahu olam hakiseh, because then he afterwards was his firstborn son born. which is the world of the throne. וההנהגה שיסד בקדשה, איך ינהג הנהגת העולמות, ואלוהים ישב על כיסא קודשו. And in this way, God sat upon his holy throne in creating the rules of the world. גם מפעליו אלה נעשו על פי חוקי החוכמה, שההנהגה הכללית הם כפי קצב החוכמה, והיא הייתה קדם מפעליו, מאז שהוחל המפעל והעסק. So what he's saying is that God, before creating creation, first created wisdom, which is the manner in which the world would be. So in essence, first God created a throne, as it were, in wisdom, and then he entered into it, sat in it in a sense on this throne by creating the world.
Right. And this
that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay.
This and what follows, right?
Yeah.
Becomes the basis in pre-Christian Judaism for this idea of the logos.
Okay.
Right. The logos, the pattern in which creation is created.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
That's the logos that St. John is talking about in the prologue of his gospel.
Yeah. Oh, I think.
Right.
So when I read, so it was actually that prologue of John which made me think that it must have originally been a Jewish text which was reworked into a Christian text.
Right. So the fundamental argument is, right, so when we talk about the Holy Trinity, we're talking about, right, God, we're talking about the Logos, the Memra in the Old Testament, Jesus in the New Testament, and we're talking about the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, throughout the Old and New Testaments, right? We're reflecting the way they are talked about. So we're not limiting it to three, right? And we have the many in the energies of God, but we are talking about, right, God, and we are talking about the other two, right?
Hold on, but
as we hold their exegetically
you do have three canonical, like, there. I mean, you can't run away from the number three in the Trinity.
I'm not.
Where does that number three? Why is this a question of three?
When Israel is standing on the edge of the Red Sea,
yes,
and Moses hears the voice of God,
yes,
and the angel of the Lord is standing there,
okay,
and the pillar of fire is standing there, and those two move to place themselves between the Egyptian and Israel. Okay, you can count. That's 1, 2, 3. That's where the three comes from. That's the only place the three comes from. There's no numerology behind it. There's no affront to one in the many behind it, right? It's
hold on. Why? First of all, why are you counting there? Right? And I mean, and
we're counting in
frankly,
Genesis
I'm sure
1.
if I wanted to, I could count other places too.
Right.
You know, and other things there. I mean, I've never gone through the Bible and started being like, let me count the ways in which God shows himself.
No. That's a different category. The way he shows himself is a different category. That's what we talk about when we talk about energies. We're not talking about every way God reveals himself and every analogy and every name. That many is under the energies. We're talking about personal agents who you see.
So this is what the difficulty I have with the word person is. Show me the Hebrew word you're equating with person. Like which Hebrew word in the Bible, right? and this is what I said to Cedric Parcells was if it's important, I expect the Bible to say it.
Yeah.
And like this Trinity thing, according to Christians, apparently is incredibly important. Yet, and to my shock, it's not even in a Christian Bible. But it's not like, show me the verses where like you're like, this is important.
This is descriptive language in another language to describe what we're seeing and to shorthand it. Right?
But
because I can't sit down every time I want. It would be great if every time someone said to me, "Hey, Father Stephen, explain to me the doctrine of the Trinity," I could sit down and go through Proverbs here in the Hebrew and go through a whole ton of other passages and say, "Hey, this is defining this figure, the Logos, right? And we believe that this person is embodied in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. That Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah because he embodies the people of Israel, Israel's God, and the Torah in a unique way. And here's why we say that. And here, I can't go through that every single time. And I can't go through, here's every place the Spirit of God is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, and here's every place the Holy Spirit is mentioned.
Okay, so the closest...
We have to shorthand it, right? We have to come up with...
But why don't we have just God's shorthanding of things? Like, Deuteronomy 6:4 through 9, like, we have the mezuzot and the phylacteries from Qumran. Jesus, I would think wore phylacteries. I'm not sure if you believe he wore phylacteries or not. But, I mean, Jesus apparently thought Deuteronomy 6:4, 4 and 5 was really, really important.
Yeah.
Why do we have the restatement of the law, Jacob?
Why? What do you mean?
Right, Maimonides, right?
No. This is actually why Maimonides' restatement of the law was burnt. This is why rabbis burnt his books. Where like people are gonna say what you just said. Like that was the objection to the Mishnah Torah. Was like, we have the Bible. Why do we need your Mishnah Torah? Right? And to some extent, that is true, right? Like, hey, Deuteronomy 6:4. I'm like, can't we all agree on that? Apparently not.
I can agree on that. I absolutely can agree on that.
Is it anywhere in your liturgy?
Well, there is a place where it is, but it's very badly translated.
Lex.
I have to be fair in that it's so badly translated that if you heard it in English, you wouldn't recognize it.
Okay, and to quote my dear friend Cedric Parcells, Lex orandi, lex credendi. I'm not sure what that means, but I'm pretty sure it applies here.
But you are aware that the Hebrew Scriptures do not end with Deuteronomy chapter 6, right?
Oh, yes.
There was more to say.
Hey, you
could take that argument the other way. The Sadducees,
Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45.
We all agree on the Torah. Why do we need this other stuff, right?
Aleinu, like Isaiah 45 describes God like actual revelation, right? Of God talking about who he is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't see Christians. I see Nicene Creed. I see lots of different creeds, none of which even refer to biblical concepts.
We do that while we do those Old Testament readings. I don't know.
Oh, that was another thing I was going to say, actually. So when you guys were talking about a lectionary of an Old Testament lectionary for the Eastern Orthodox, seems to me you should go with the Council of Jerusalem and read only from the 5 books.
The Council of Jerusalem didn't say only read the Torah.
It said Moses is read every week.
Right.
So
Yeah,
read
and that's
Moses
saying-
every week.
that's
Read
saying
Moses every
He's
week.
available. Yeah, go to your local synagogue. You can hear him read every week. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it would be a great addition.
No, I'd
to
be
your
perfectly
lectionary.
happy with that.
You can.
I just a few weeks ago, since the last time we talked, I taught a whole class on the Torah to Christians. So I'm all in favor of that.
I think it seems to me that like Council of Jerusalem in Acts 15 kind of was hinting Christians should read Moses on a weekly basis and in churches.
I'm all in favor of it.
We should make it happen.
Well, and at that time they were, because they were going to the synagogue on the Sabbath, and then they were having the Eucharistic meeting on the other day. But then somebody threw us out, and we had to go make do.
You know, I have to go back to this.
I know it's more complicated than that.
No, but Birkat HaMinim, like if you think that's kicking you out,
I know, I don't. I know. I was just poking at you a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that would be great. I think it would be great if we had a Torah and a Haftorah reading.
Oh yeah. Oh, actually, I mean, if you want to go through, we can go. I can give you a little tour of this.
Now we do go through the Book of Psalms every week.
You every week? Wow.
Every week.
Okay. There are many. Yeah.
Substantive parts of the Old Testament that are read very regularly.
Hey, Psalms is a good one. I'm not sure which Yosef you're. Oh, he means this week's parsha. Yeah. Oh, if you guys came on our liturgical calendar and started reading the parshas with the Jews, I would be totally for that. I would not mind that.
What was the parsha this week? We've been doing the story of Joseph in my Bible study. So I was just talking about that.
This week, are we on Vayigash already? No, it's Miketz this week, isn't it? I'm bad with my parshas.
Me too.
Well, with that, it's late, and I'm gonna have to go to bed. So I'm glad that I could be the catalyst for this discussion. So, anyway,
it was nice having you, Garth. Although I have to say, Father Stephen is on the same time thing as you are, and he stays up late.
Central Time.
Yeah. I don't sleep much.
Okay. Well, I joined the club. Hey, I mean, so DeYoung, I'm a machinist. So I started off as a third shifter.
Okay.
So it's like I get it. So anyway.
Yeah, those machines are pretty expensive. Fezzi, are we on the same are we on the same? So sometimes the readings fall a week difference in Israel from outside of Israel. I thought this week we're on Miketz. Anyway, so what I was gonna point out in this is, so Onkelos gets printed pretty much always with the Chumash, and then there's the Haftarahs. I was kind of surprised that this has Baal HaTurim. Baal HaTurim is the same guy in this chart, and the back is you see Turim towards the bottom. So it's the same rabbi who wrote the Torah, which became the code of Jewish law. And this is his commentary on the Chumash that's in the thing. But this is supposed to be like I would say most Hasidim would only be familiar with what's in this book as opposed to an actual Tanakh. Because while most of the Bible is probably here, like, I don't know about most of Navi. I don't know if most of Navi is here. Danielle is not here. Yeah, like Chumash, the Haftarahs, Psalms, all of the readings for the various holidays. But if it's not actually involved with a holiday, like there's far less Jewish involvement with even parts of the Bible that don't actually have a holiday associated with them.
That's true for us too, in the Orthodox Church at least, right? There are,
obviously,
especially with Old Testament readings, there are Old Testament readings that just don't line up with any particular commemoration or feast day or that kind of thing. And so, yeah.
Well, I think when you realize that you were talking, I mean, when your religion is actually older than the printing press, you realize, oh, actually the types of thinking and the frame you have for your religion based on the printing press is very different. And that's one thing I noticed when I started being more involved in actual Orthodox Judaism. Is it's not as I mean, Reform and Conservative really are, they're modern. They're I jokingly call them Lutheran. Because
they assume your ability to have the text in front of you and everybody's ability to work with it.
Yeah, and everybody has one in their home.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, no. People didn't have them in their home. Especially the women. And it's not like the women were inconsequential to religion. And that's actually been one of the more interesting things with Bart Ehrman and stuff. Seeing how much actually religion is a lot more female driven than people give it credit for.
Because it's actually community driven. And when you have a community based in families, that's going to be woman driven.
Right. And
there
frankly,
he goes. He's going to start talking about the nuclear family.
Why it's bad. Anyway, no.
It is bad. No, but actually, I started realizing that prohibition on women clergy doesn't exist to subjugate women. It exists to actually give men a fighting chance.
Yes. No, it is. It is.
Yeah. Because otherwise,
look
the
at
women
Deborah and Barak.
Yeah.
Look at Deborah and Barak.
Yeah. Women would completely dominate men if not for limitations placed on them.
Yeah.
We're totally gonna get canceled for this.
I'm trying to get canceled.
Oh, I mean,
although recently I have unlocked a new achievement for a goyim.
Yeah.
I have been called both a Judaizer and an anti-Semite in the same day.
Oh, that happens all the time. That's not strange. I am actually tomorrow going to be talking to. So there's been a few things in the works which some people may have been paying attention to. I got myself fired from the Trevor Project for saying things were illegal, and I've been lawyering up. So if things go well, you might be hearing news coming out of the Jacob sector. That's actual news, because it's their incompetence is shocking. Is it shocking? it's
It should
fact.
be. It should be.
The fact they don't have licensed professionals, that was surprising.
Yeah.
They've kicked out the licensed professionals because what they're doing is, gone. They've lost their minds. So, yeah, I may actually see people coming at me, but yeah, cancellation would just bring up my stock.
Yeah, most of the things I say to try and get canceled, and it ends up going the other way.
Mm.
I end up having a lot of people go, "Thank you for saying that." And I'm like, well, that's good, I guess.
All right, so are we going to hear about fetishization of commodities?
Yes, come on.
Come on, Father.
Commodity fetishism is a great evil.
Let's go into alienation and all that stuff. Huh?
Well, if you really want to hear about that, see, now I'll do plugs. I'll do shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
The first Antiochian men's retreat is happening.
Ooh.
First week in March, and I'm talking about an Orthodox theology of work. So it's the week after Pajot Fest.
Well,
at which I'm also a keynote speaker.
But Jack is a catechumen in the Russian Orthodox Church. Is he allowed?
He's allowed. If you could go to Pajot Fest, right, which is in Carpet Spring, home of the Greeks, right?
Then I can't go to Pajot Fest because I've got a little niece or nephew on the way that weekend.
Oh yeah,
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
My talk that I'm giving at Pajot Fest, which is total Peterson bait, is Friedrich Nietzsche's Guide to the Bodily Resurrection.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Chezi wants to ask you about Mashiach ben Yosef.
Yeah, so, well, you read, I talked about that a little in the Apocrypha book, right? About some of the ways in which that's reflected in some of those Second Temple Jewish texts. So there's definitely a view within Second Temple Judaism. Well, there's a whole bunch of views that involve multiple messiahs, right? So there's views that involve like a Davidic messiah, a kingly messiah, and a priestly messiah who are separate. There are other similar views like that. So the Messiah, Ben Joseph, emerges out of it emerges from one thing and then it gets shaped by another thing. Right. Okay. It emerges out of, and you see this in things like the Testament of Naphtali and the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs. It emerges out of how are the prophecies of Jeremiah and Ezekiel going to be fulfilled about the restoration of all 12 tribes when 10 of them are lost, scattered among the Gentiles. And the understanding then of the blessing in Genesis 48 that Jacob gives to Joseph's sons, where he crosses his arms, even though Ephraim is the younger, and says that Ephraim's offspring will become the fullness of the Gentiles. Of course, Ephraim is the most populous and central tribe of the northern kingdom that gets destroyed, and Ephraim is just used to refer to those tribes. And so the idea then, the interpretation is, well, these tribes are going to be in some way reconstituted from among the Gentiles. And that begins to be conceived in the Second Temple period as a particular messianic ministry. And by some people as a separate messianic ministry from the ministry of the Messiah, son of David, David, of course, being the Judahite Judahite monarchy. St. Paul actually argues this in Romans 9 through 11. This is what he's actually talking about in Romans 9 through 11.
I've heard you say this. I'm not sure everyone agrees.
Well, Calvinists definitely don't agree with me. But it's very clear when you've read the earlier Second Temple Jewish texts that St. Paul's using the same language. He even quotes the fullness of the Gentiles, right? Like he uses that language quite deliberately. And the vessels of wrath he's talking about are the northern kingdom, right? Not some hypothetical reprobate individuals, right? The Calvinists want to take that and just individualize it all, which is very modern of them, but not how the scriptures usually talk about such things. That's and so then you also see, though, in texts from the late first century Jewish texts, non-Christian Jewish texts, right? In the first and second century, that in reaction to Christianity, that starts to shape. This isn't the origin of it, but that also starts to shape the understanding of Messiah ben Joseph, in that non-Christian Jewish people see that despite not buying into the idea that Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah, that there are certain definite benefits for the Jewish people in Christianity bringing the Torah to the Gentiles, getting rid of idolatry, right? They see these as good things. And so the Messiah ben Joseph tradition is one of the tools they use to help interpret that, right? And so that ends up shaping that tradition a little bit as a place to sort of fill in, the understanding of, well, if we don't accept that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah, the son of David, maybe he is in some way filling this other role in terms of the Gentiles.
Well, yeah, I mean, so this has been kind of the thing for me, which is for a very long time, as I understand it, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Christians have dismissed the idea of Mashiach ben Yosef as a rabbinic invention to try to explain away Jesus, and a post-Christian rabbinic invention to try to explain away Jesus. And now that it has actually become clear that it's actually an idea which precedes Christianity, Christians have suddenly started using it as a way of trying to say, oh, see, Jesus is fulfillment of Christian view. And it's like, hold on here. You're like flipping your argument on its head, right? Because frankly, for me, the idea that Jesus, Christianity is an incarnation of Mashiach ben Yosef, right, is just seems very clear. And frankly, one of the reasons Chezi brought it up is it's brought up several times in rabbinic texts, this idea of Jesus as Mashiach ben Yosef. Like, it's not a foreign idea to Orthodox Judaism. It may not be a popular idea, but it's not a foreign idea. Whereas Christians have turned on a dime from, oh, you just came up with this because you didn't want to, because you wanted to explain away Jesus, to, oh, see, yeah, now we agree with you. And it's like, well, could you at least
Right.
least like be like, we are sorry for the past 1,000 years of claiming you guys, your Talmud, like, came up with this just to spite us?
Well, you have to understand what happened. So biblical scholarship is a phenomenon of modern Protestantism in Northern Europe.
Mm.
That's really what it is. Right. Certainly people within Roman Catholicism in the medieval period studied the scriptures, but it was not the focus, right? You had theology courses. Theology is the queen of the sciences, right? And before that, you studied philosophy, right? The idea of biblical theology is a Protestant thing because it emerges out of sola scriptura, right? And a deliberate exclusion of all the things that went into theology previously, other than other than the Christian Bible as it was defined within Protestant circles. And so that sola scriptura influence led until literally the 1980s. Literally the 1980s.
Really?
Biblical scholarship thinking that anything outside the Christian Bible was essentially worthless for theology. Because sola scriptura. Those books were all thrown out of the canon for some reason. Right? That we're not totally clear on, but they're not.
Yeah.
And then it was literally N.T. Wright who said what seems totally obvious to everyone now. Hey, maybe if we read these things, we'd understand how Jewish people were thinking at the time of the New Testament, right? Like that seems totally obvious, right? Maybe understanding how Jewish people thought at that time would help us understand how the New Testament authors thought.
Yeah.
Right. And what they mean by things, right? And it has touched off this whole revolution, right? And you got to factor in the Dead Sea Scrolls becoming more widely available after they were discovered in the 1960s, right? This is all end of the 20th century stuff. And so you get a lot of...
You don't credit Geza Vermesh?
Well, in part in terms of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in terms of help popularizing them and getting them out into the...
Well, Jesus the Jew?
Yeah. I know you're not disappointed when you finally read his autobiography.
I was very disappointed when I read his autobiography. But Jesus the Jew, I mean, I think was very influential.
Right. But so these... Right. Well, and there was Paul, Sanders, Paul and Palestinian Judaism. Right. There were other things. I mean, I didn't drop out of the sky, but
you haven't mentioned what you think of James Tabor.
We've tried a few times. I think so. I think he's still trapped in the third search for the historical Jesus. And there's been a sustained critique of that by a number of people, not just conservatives, right? People who we would call, crazed liberals in terms of their theology, right? Like who have also critiqued it. Because a lot of that critique is when you utilize a method that diminishes the number of established facts you have to work with. Right. So you let yourself free to sort of just, we have scant amounts of historical evidence for anything in the first century surrounding the New Testament, right? Beyond the New Testament documents themselves. There is some, but it's scanty, right? And so if you free yourself to sort of dismiss the New Testament texts themselves or radically reinterpret them, then what ends up happening is that the intuitive leaps you make when you connect the dots end up forming something of a self-portrait. Right? You kind of end up with a Jesus who looks a lot like maybe an idealized version of you, maybe the you wish you were, right? But that very much, and there's not an easy way to avoid that. And New Testament scholarship has mostly moved on from the third quest for the historical Jesus because of that. And has become just sort of super focused on the text. right? Because like Bart Ehrman and I can sit down and we can agree about what St. Paul is saying in a text, even though I would say I agree with what St. Paul is saying, and he would say he doesn't agree with what St. Paul is saying. We could agree on what he's saying at least, right? We can agree this is what he's saying, right? So that represented a way forward in New Testament scholarship beyond I come up with my version of who I think Jesus was, and then you do the same, and someone else does the same. And how do we judge between them? How do we judge who's right? You know, how do we? And it becomes very mired in sort of a subjectivity. And Old Testament studies, academic Old Testament studies, is still mired in that kind of subjectivity completely. It hasn't moved on from it. So it's just complete reconstruction in whole cloth, disregard the actual Hebrew Bible. Right, you know, a handful of escaped slaves from Egypt, radicalize, you know, the tenant farmers. Hey, we're getting to the dialectical materialism. Radicalize like the tenant farmers in Canaan against their Canaanite overlords and stage this revolution and then fabricate the Torah as sort of their new reworked history based on half-remembered ancestral traditions of common ancestors. XYZ, and, you know, then they craft a polytheistic religion with a whole bunch of feasts that appear nowhere in the Hebrew Bible, but that I've come up with based on what I think the Hebrew Bible is trying to hide. Right? And everyone does that. And then it's like, well, okay, how do we navigate between these different reconstructions and decide who's right? There is no objective way to do that. You know? And so I think James Tabor has, all that is to say, I think James Tabor has really interesting things to say. But ultimately you get to, okay, so what evidence do you have, though, that your version of this is true?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No,
where can we go to check this and find out for sure if you're right or not?
I mean, this is how you end up with postmodernism, because it's, and I really do think postmodernism is a reflection of trying to figure out reality by interpreting your Bible without reference to reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just, I present my reconstruction. If you find it compelling, right, in some way, or useful in some way, you'll agree with me.
Right. I hate to do this, especially because there's a bunch of people watching, but I was supposed to turn into a pumpkin about 15 minutes ago. So I am going to have to wind this down because, and I have a lot I have to do tomorrow. But we can still hang around for a little while if there was any particular thing you wanted to talk about.
I've got one. So,
shoot.
Okay. You and N.T. Wright talk about Paul's restatement of the Shema.
I like that. Me and N.T. Wright, we're pals.
Yeah. and no, I'm a normal guy.
There is a woman, I think in Missouri, who sends N.T. Wright copies of all of my books when they come out. I haven't heard anything from anybody. I don't know why she does this, but it is a thing that happens. But anyway, continue. Yes.
Yeah.
St. Paul's restatement of the Torah. Yeah.
Yeah. The Shema or whatever. I'm a normal guy. I've got no idea like what the Shema is. How does this restatement? Yeah.
Jacob and I were just talking about it earlier.
Deuteronomy 6:4.
Yeah.
The Shema is Deuteronomy 6:4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And supposedly,
you shall love the Lord your God.
And supposedly, Paul says we have one God and one Lord. And
right. He takes the Greek version of that, right, and sort of inserts,
Jesus in there.
The one Lord. Yeah.
Which is actually not, I mean, I never saw that as there are lots of things I've read in Paul that have made me want to smash the screen I'm reading it on. That's not one of the, the idea that, I mean, if I had time, I would want to talk to you about the icon of Moses, but like the idea of, so Maimonides calls it the sin of Enosh, right? So Enosh, Enos, I guess in Christian terms, right? There's a play on the word Yachel, to begin, in Hebrew, which is, it can also mean to profane, right? It says that he began to call on the name of the Lord. And obviously this is Midrash, but the question becomes, what does that mean? He began to, like, obviously there were people like, what, Adam didn't call on the name of the Lord? Yeah. And so the idea is, as Maimonides explains it, is there is a fine mistake that is made by people who say that just as I should have respect for the emissaries of the king, I should have respect for those things which God gives of his greatness to, right? So I guess it's in Chronicles, the people bow to David and the Lord, right?
Yeah.
That only becomes a problem when it becomes a substitute for, right? If I understand that, oh no, because I believe in God, right? And here I am confronted with an angel that represents God, right? Then I should have a certain amount of respect and awe for it. There's nothing whatsoever wrong with that. It's when you go seeking out, oh, well, you know, I'm looking how to approach God, and I should approach God through one of these intermediaries, which I think causes the problem. It's like, well, no, there's God, right? And while I have a lot of respect for, say, a rabbi who is a holy person who represents godliness and God's will in the world by knowing the Bible and teaching the Bible and living the Bible, and right? If I am praying, I pray to God. And this becomes the problem that certain groups in Judaism have with, for example, going to the graves of rabbis or visiting, right? And where that line becomes problematic is a difficult. Too many people have.
It didn't used to be difficult. It's all the Protestants running around that make it difficult.
Really? Is it?
Accusing us of idolatry? Yes, that's.
I
what
don't know.
makes it
I was
difficult.
thinking Jacob started sounding a lot like a Lutheran that he was accusing the conservatives and reforms of being.
I mean, seriously, does the Torah reflect any ambiguity about telling you where Machpelah is so you can go and? I don't think it does.
So, there are places. For example, we don't know where Moses is buried.
Right. We believe the same thing, by the way, about the Theotokos.
Okay.
That after she died, her body was taken up into heaven like Moses by God.
I mean,
for similar reasons.
I think I think you cannot. What I say, I was trying to explain this to someone today without referring to the Bible because I was not in a situation where I could say the Bible. But if your Bible could be written in a few lines, it would have been. There's a reason why God took as many, used as many letters as he did. And if you think you can abridge the Bible to something more pithy than God, I think you might be suffering from some hubris there.
Agreed.
And with that agreement,
So you got to put the New Testament back on there. There's still some things that had to be clarified, some misunderstandings about the Hebrew Bible and stuff.
When did
the
Hasidim actually take the New Testament off?
Funny.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my joke about the Mormons.
Yeah.
Why did God create the Mormons? So Christians would know how Jews feel. Okay, with that,
Totally. I have thought that many times.
I am going to end this stream.